Global Star Party. Here we go.
Just wondering if by rebooting it, I get a slightly better signal.
You sound really good right now.
Yeah, that sounded good.
Yeah, you sound good, David.
Yeah, you're all sounding a little soft, but it's better than it was.
The internet plays games. Plays favorites sometimes.
Maybe it's those pesky cosmic rays playing with us.
That's what I think.
I'm a dust.
Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to the next Global Star Party. I mean, we haven't even finished this one yet. I'm already looking forward to the next one.
I hope that's not a statement on tonight's performance.
Hope not.
Well, there's something special about every one of them.
Is this a 10-minute talk again?
Yeah.
Now, what was that joke that George Carlin told? David?
I don't own a telescope, but I'm thinking of looking into one.
That is so bad.
That's a groaner.
Oh boy, is it ever.
Libby, do you know of any astronomy jokes at all?
No, not too many.
No. I usually just make them up as they go along, so they're very spontaneous. Most of them are not that funny that I tell. Except I think so, I think they're funny.
It's not so much the joke, which is the story with a humorous climax, but just the way you talk and the turn-ins of phrase that really, really can be so funny and so humorous.
Well,
And the true stories that you hear, like the time that the Pope was in a crowd and he was shaking hands, and there was this young girl who actually looked a little like you, Libby, and but much younger, and she grabbed the Pope's little hat and took it.
oh,
And the boy's father, I think, was holding him and got very upset and said, "You can't take that. That's the Pope's hat." And the Pope Francis just started laughing hysterically. He said, "He can keep it. I can get another one."
yeah. That's a true story?
It's a true story, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know one a funny joke. It was a photo, you know the Bernie Sanders memes? And he was sitting on Saturn's rings.
Yeah, I have one of him sitting right outside our observatory. Yeah. Except I don't know how to do it. The person who sent it to me gave me the website, but it doesn't work for me. I can't actually do it.
Bernie has gotten around in the last
Yeah.
couple of weeks here. Yeah.
And because he's such a
Bernie.
popular person, of course, he's gotten around even more. He's so well liked.
I edited a photo and I put him right by my cat.
Oh, here we go. Norm Hughes, perfect. The puzzled astronomer stared and wondered where the sun went. Then it dawned on him. Oh, that's good.
Puzzled astronomer wondered where the
Oh, wow. Here we go. Here's another one. Dusty Haskins. How does a solar system get ready for a star party? They plan it.
Did you hear that one, Wendy?
They plan it. Yes, they
You
do.
have to. How does a solar
Oh my
system plan a
gosh.
star party? They sit down and plan it.
Okay. Someone please answer a question for me. Is it safe to store a refractor telescope standing on end? Yes. Most likely with the aperture end with the cap on. Sure. You just want it to be reasonably dry and dust free, But yeah. That's the answer, Josh. Why is a moon rock faster than an earth rock? It's a little meteor. Oh. I think hospitals could benefit from coma correctors. Oh. Why is why is a moon rock tastier than an Earth rock? It's a little meatier. Tastier. uh, Great.
The NASA ESA Hubble Space Telescope is named after the famous astronomer Edwin Hubble. He discovered that there are galaxies outside of our own and that the universe is expanding. However, these remarkable discoveries wouldn't have been possible without one exceptional astronomer before him, Henrietta Swan Leavitt. Henrietta Leavitt was born in Lancaster, Massachusetts in 1868. She studied at Oberlin College, Ohio, and then Harvard University's Society for the Collegiate Instruction of Women. It wasn't until her final year at university that she began to study astronomy. But this sparked a keen interest that she would pursue for the rest of her life. She began to work at Harvard Observatory as a computer, one of several skilled women hired to process astronomical data. She helped with cataloging the brightness of every measurable star and was quickly promoted to be head of the photographic stellar photometry department. Supplied with photographic plates of the stars in the southern sky, Leavitt was tasked with classifying variable stars, ones that fluctuate in brightness. While studying these changing stars, she noticed a pattern. The brighter the star, the longer the period of fluctuations. The easily measured length of the star's fluctuations directly leads to its brightness and to its distance. The observation of these Cepheid variables turned out to be the key to a fundamental change in our understanding of the universe. Edwin Hubble used this measuring tape to determine the distance to what was then known as the Andromeda Nebula. The results showed that Andromeda was actually not part of the Milky Way, but a galaxy on its own, millions of light years away. Edwin Hubble discovered that our universe contains many more galaxies than just the Milky Way. Hubble measured the distances to more and more galaxies using Leavitt's law. These measurements led him to another astounding deduction. The entire universe is expanding. He gathered the first observational evidence for the Big Bang. Henrietta Swan Leavitt never knew the impact of her discovery. She died 3 years before Hubble announced his revelation about the Andromeda Galaxy. However, even today, Leavitt's discovery remains a vital foundation of modern cosmology, and it is still used to determine the distances to galaxies.
Now that you've caught up with Hubble, make sure to get the latest from the ground too. The ESOcast highlights the best of the European Southern Observatory and its powerful telescopes that observe from high in the Chilean Andes, at the Southern Hemisphere's best-known sites for astronomical observations.
Well, everyone, this is the Global Star Party, and something's wrong with my camera. Let me fix it. Here we go. Here we are. And normally I have a grander grand opening than that, but nothing could be more grand than all of the people that are with me tonight. We have Dr. David Levy at the Jarnac Observatory. We have David J. Eicher from Astronomy Magazine, chief editor. We have Chuck Allen, former president of the Astronomical League. You are now the current vice president, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
That's right, that's right. Astrobeard, Richard Grace, astrophotographer, enthusiast, lover of the skies, and Libby and the stars. If there's anyone that is more in love with space exploration and astronomy than Libby, I don't know who they are, because that's all that's on Libby's mind is the day that she can explore more of the universe. So I think it's fantastic. We have more people coming on later today. And on this particular Global Star Party, being our 30th, the door prizes will be 30 millimeter eyepieces. So we thought that would be a nice theme. Also, we are going to open the Global Star Party to anyone listening that is involved in astronomy and has something to share with us, okay? So the final hour, and that's what I'm calling that segment, is the final hour. I will post the login to our waiting room where you will have your audio and video checked by Kent Martz. That'll happen about, we're at 7 p.m. Central Time right now, but at 9 p.m. Central, you'll be able to log into the waiting room. Kent will check everything out, and he'll also make sure that you're not selling ShamWow or something, you know. So this is about astronomy. You have to have something to contribute. So think of it that you've been allowed into a TED Talk. You have to talk, okay? So that's the deal. But we'd love to have you, and so we'll get started as we do every Global Star Party, and this is now, of course, the 30th one with David Levy, who's a friend to all of us here. He presents every event that he goes to in just the right way. His poetry, sometimes his songs, his thoughts, his nuances about what each event is so well characterized by David that I can't imagine having a Global Star Party without him. So, David, I'm going to turn the stage over to you and let you do what you do best.
Well, thank you, Scotty, and it's really good to be here to help celebrate the 30th Global Star Party. I really enjoyed hearing about hearing about the wonderful women of the Harvard College Observatory. And the one we heard about today was really extra special because she made a discovery that was crucial in the development of modern astronomy. And I think, Libby, it's especially a lesson for you because you will be, as you get older and you get more into what we hope will be the astronomy of your generation, you will learn more and more, and the stage will be set for you to make this great discoveries in the night sky and in cosmology. The quote, I always set the Star Party off with a quotation, and tonight I'm going to use Hopkins's Comet poem, which I've used before on this Star Party. In fact, the one that we did on the conjunction of the planets, during one of that run that lasted an entire almost 24 hours. That was one of the quotes that I used then, and I'm going to use that today. It was written by Gerard Manley Hopkins, and I know that those of you who studied Hopkins in high school or in college probably hated him because his poetry was so complicated. it was so difficult, and the rhyme scheme was very difficult to follow. One of the most difficult poems and poets of all of English literature, except for this one. I am like a slip of comet, he wrote while he was at Oxford University as a student at Balliol College. And I know that the person that I studied under at Queen's University for my master's was Norman Mackenzie. And after I graduated, he gave a lecture about Hopkins, and he said that he had never seen anybody more enthusiastic about a work of English literature than I was about this crazy poem about comets. And I can admit here, as I have done before, that I have never taken a course in astronomy. Legally, I know nothing, zip, about astronomy. But I sure love going out and looking at the night sky. In fact, just now, Wendy and I went out, or at least looked through the window at the almost full moon rising in the eastern sky. Absolutely gorgeous. Well, here is Hopkins's comet poem. I am like a slip of comet, scarce worth discovery, in some corner seen, bridging the slender difference of two stars, come out of space or suddenly engendered by heady elements, for no one knows. But when she sights the sun, she grows and sizes and spins her skirts out, while her central star shakes its cocooning mists. And so she comes to fields of light, millions of traveling rays pierce her. She hangs upon the flame-cased sun and sucks the light as full as Gideon's fleece. But then her tether calls her. She falls off, and as she dwindles, sheds her smock of gold amidst the sistering planets, until she comes to single Saturn, last and solitary, and then goes out into the cavernous dark. So I go out, my little sweet is done. I have drawn heat from this contagious sun, to not ungentle death, now forth I run. And now back to you, Scotty.
Wow, that is beautiful. That's beautiful. Wow. So, David, that's, I mean, just perfect. And what better way to describe a comet, you know, and in all of its splendor, you know. All of us that are amateur astronomers and have followed comets in the sky, there's so many moments where we see special times where the shape of the comet, or shells that are brought forth because of its jet as it's spinning, or maybe it broke apart, or just a million things that can happen to a comet. And who better to know those comets than you, David? But thanks for sharing that beautiful poem.
Well, thank you, Scotty. One interesting thing about the poem is that Hopkins knew a lot more than he let on in the poem about comets, because he was an amateur astronomer and he loved it. Come out of space or suddenly engendered by heady elements, for no one knows. He knew, except when he set the poem, the speaker of the poem was actually in the Renaissance, when they didn't know whether comets were actually part of the sky or whether they were suddenly engendered by earth, air, fire, and water. And then the other one, amidst the sistering planets till she comes to single Saturn, last and solitary. He knew very well that the solar system extended far beyond Saturn. He knew about Uranus. He was alive during the discovery of Neptune, in fact. He was not alive when Pluto was found, and I'm very much looking forward to joining that event on the 4th of February to celebrate Clyde Tombaugh's life, and you might be hearing a little bit about that when Dave Eicher takes the microphone. But Hopkins knew all these things. He loved the night sky. In fact, there was even one time when he thought he had discovered a comet. Turned out it was the Beehive cluster in Cancer that he was looking at, which really, without a telescope, can be mistaken for a comet. So I
Sure.
just wanted to make some of those clarifications, Scotty.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. So, the way that we do the Global Star Party, it's to me, it feels like a fireside chat. I mean, you are in you're in our homes. Well, this is kind of like my home, my office here at Explore Scientific, and I love being in here because I'm surrounded with telescopes and all of my group and all the things that go on every day. I love it. But it's wonderful to see Dave Eicher in his home and Chuck Allen in his home and Richard Grace in his home and Libby in her home, and we're here to share our love of the sky with you. We're here to share some of our knowledge, but we're also here to inspire you. And one of the guys has been doing an amazing amount of inspiration for so many years is David Eicher. David has done it through his writings and all of the sacrifices he's made to produce the magazines that he produced and the books he's written, the lectures he's given, all the travels, all the hard work to get all those people together, all those contributing editors and everybody to put forth an amazing publication every month. David, I personally want to thank you for that because it's something that is not only, personally important to me to read, the news and the information that's come forth from Astronomy Magazine every month, but knowing that somehow served as a vessel for the entire amateur astronomy community. It's just really an honor to have you on the show, and you've been on so many times, and I love it, and I can't wait until our next, as I said before, the next Global Star Party, which will be the 31st one, but it will happen on the birthday of Clyde Tombaugh, and so you're going to have David Eicher, contributing editors, David Levy, who's great friends with Clyde Tombaugh, celebrate his birthday, but it's just gonna be an amazing star party. So I just up front, I want you to know how much I appreciate that you agreed to do this, and that I can only imagine we're going to hear some amazing stuff about Clyde, Pluto, the magazine. It's going to be awesome. So I'll let you take the stage from here.
Well, thank you, Scott. And it's a great joy and an honor to be with you. And thanks for all that you say all the time and what you've done for the amateur community. And we're thrilled to have David with us as well, who knew Clyde better than anyone in the amateur community. And I think David will tell some stories about Clyde in that event coming up on the 4th, which will be Clyde's 115th birthday, by the way. But for now, I'll limit myself to the progression of things working out into the galaxy that I was talking about last week. And we talked a little bit about exoplanets last week. This week, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Milky Way, our galaxy, which we heard a little bit about there in our intro film that Scott queued up with Hubble and Henrietta Swan Leavitt and others. And I wanted to talk about a revelation that we've had just in the last generation, only about 20 years ago here, 15 years ago, with the structure of our galaxy, because it really, so much of what we understand about the universe has changed in just the last decade or two. It's really quite striking. So just to step back for one moment, of course, it's coming up almost now on 100 years ago that Edwin Hubble, on October 4th and 5th, 1923, Hubble was not maybe the most likable guy among his peers. He was a little brusque and a little arrogant, but he was a good astronomer, and he was very, very interested in the early 1920s, where he was in Pasadena researching so-called spiral nebulae, his favorite kind of object. So, of course, as he made his way up to the largest telescope in the world at that time, the Hooker 100-inch telescope at Mount Wilson, he imaged the Andromeda Nebula on that night and made a plate and was very curious about some things he saw on that plate, went back and imaged it in better seeing the following night, and then had a puzzle on his hands, as we know, because he found what he thought was a nova at first on that plate, an exploding star, but found out comparing it to other observations that had been made both at Wilson and other observatories that it was a Cepheid variable. It was a very particular distinct kind of variable star whose pattern is like the prototype Delta Cephei that's a nearby star, but this star was in a distant nebula, he thought at the time. And he was astonished when he made this discovery because the absolute brightness of these kinds of variable stars is very well known. So you can gauge the distance, of course, by the apparent brightnesses of these variable stars. And this was so faint, this Cepheid variable, that Hubble was astonished. He thought he had discovered a new type of object, which really he did, a galaxy, and that it was 1,000,000 light years away. That was at the time 3 times larger than most astronomers believed the extent of the entire universe was, 1,000,000 light years. Now we know, of course, it's 2.5 million light years away. So he only had a fraction of that distance correct. But he did discover both the nature of galaxies and studied on a huge program of research than many other spiral nebulae that he was so fascinated with, and did indeed study their motions. Although I would correct very slightly our introductory film and say that the first good evidence of radial velocities of spiral nebulae moving apart from each other was done by Vesto M. Slipher at Lowell Observatory in 1912, a decade before Hubble, the expansion of the universe. So anyway, the nature of galaxies became very well known with Hubble. Of course, it was an instantaneous uproar in science because it was so stunning, the redefinition of what the universe was and how large it is. And he immediately went into studying all that he could in classified galaxies. Ad nauseum, of course, what do you do in the sciences, whether it's butterflies or bones or minerals or rocks or galaxies, you classify them before you can really understand their origin and evolution. So he did that, and he published a famous book called The Realm of the Nebulae in 1936 and had a very basic classification of the kinds of galaxies he observed: spiral galaxies, barred spiral galaxies, spirals with a prominent central bar from which the spiral arms emanate, and big spheres of stars and gas, elliptical galaxies, and a few other little types. But really, the classification of galaxies took a big, big leap forward a whole generation later with the French astronomer who came over to the United States and went to Texas, the largest astronomy department in the United States there, Gerard de Vaucouleurs, who I was privileged to get to know a little bit near the end of his life, maybe some of you too. And he really, at the end of the 1950s and through the 1960s, made the sophisticated classification system of galaxies that we know today, the de Vaucouleurs system. So for 85 years, we went rolling right ahead with our knowledge of the universe and galaxies, and we thought that our galaxy, the Milky Way, was an ordinary spiral, pretty much like the Andromeda galaxy, which is a spiral. The problem for us, though, is it's very hard to determine the structure of a galaxy when you're inside it. All of our wonderful astrophotographer friends, as far as I know, have not yet been able to capture a photograph of the Milky Way from the outside. That's really going to make some news.
That's going to be...
Okay. Just seeing if you're still paying attention.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Okay. So it's very difficult because there's a tremendous amount of dust. And of course, we're in a system of several 100 billion stars and a lot of dust and gas. So it's hard to determine the structure of the Milky Way from within. We do know that the basic components of the galaxy were understood pretty well. If you go out, of course, you may know and look towards Sagittarius, you're looking essentially toward the center of the galaxy, the position of the center of the galaxy. If you look and draw a line in your mind between the cluster M6 and the Lagoon Nebula, just about at the midpoint of that line is the direction of the galactic center. Although visually, when we look toward that position in our sky, even in a very dark sky, we're only seeing about a quarter of the way toward the center of the Milky Way because of all the obscuring dust. Well, so we had a real conundrum on our hands trying to understand the structure of our galaxy. But in 2000, the year 2000 that is, astronomers in Tenerife in the Canary Islands made a breakthrough discovery doing infrared astronomy and found what they called evidence of a long bar in the central region of the Milky Way. And a few years later, more significantly and more thoroughly, the so-called glimpse survey using the Spitzer Space Telescope made a tremendous breakthrough. And just to give you that acronym, GLIMPSE stands for Galactic Legacy Infrared Midplane Survey Extraordinaire. No, astronomers never work really hard to make really cool acronyms. So anyway, this was an infrared survey of 220 million stars roughly, and about 70% of the molecular clouds in our galaxy, most of the star forming regions in the Milky Way, and it really mapped the galaxy in very thorough detail for the first time ever. And I can never do this, so I'm going to do it now. The project, the PI of this project, the GLIMPSE survey, is Professor Bob Benjamin at the University of Wisconsin Whitewater. Okay. That's rare. A little satellite of the Milwaukee School was the place where this project was headquartered. That's typically not the case for a major breakthrough project like this. So this project was actually headquartered in Wisconsin, and it found a number of significant components of the galaxy. So what I'd like to do now, if I can, is to share my screen just for a couple of moments. See if this works. Uh-oh, it doesn't want me to. Oh dear. Oh no. Settings.
Sharing? You wanted to share your image?
Settings are holding me up here, Scott. I don't know if I can email this quickly to you, Scott.
Yeah, sure.
And let me, I'll continue to yammer on just for another minute.
They'll be over here in just a jiffy.
And maybe you can share it. I'm sorry for this. I downloaded a new operating system, and I bet it is giving me some trouble with my settings here. That's what I get for going to, what is it? It's Big Sur. Yep. That teaches me for going to Big Sur. Now, I just emailed that to you, Scott. So if you, if you get that, if you could share that, that would be great. But what the GLIMPSE survey told us, and this was only in 2008, this is relatively recent here in terms of a major understanding of our galaxy, is that there's a central so-called bulgy bar that's about 23,000 light years across through the middle of our galaxy. There's a long bar that's a little fainter that's about 29,000 light years across. Of course, we, the sun and planets, are about between 26 and 27,000 light years out from the middle of our galaxy in a nice, safe neighborhood. And this is of course, not a photograph, but a piece of art, but accurately showing the glimpse data and the different spiral arms and bar in our galaxy. So of course, we know that the stellar disk in the Milky Way is at least 100,000 light years across. As I mentioned, our sun there, you can see the position there. It's about 26,000 light years out and change. The outer limits of the gas and star formation of the Milky Way are about a diameter of about 143,000 light years, the active star formation in our galaxy. And galaxies are very thin disks, most all of them. The thickness of the Milky Way is principally 1,500 light years, as opposed to nearly 150,000 light years across.
Wow.
And they're outlying stars and a little bit of gas to a thickness of about 3,000 light years. So you can imagine a spinning CD maybe on your player. It's much, 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 much thinner even than that would be, turning round and round. We now know that we are in an SBC, that little c, barred spiral galaxy, and the little c, SB means barred spiral. The little c simply means that our galaxy has loosely wound arms compared to many galaxies that have much more tightly wound arms. You can see the principal arms are marked on this diagram, the Perseus arm, which also has a couple of spurs, the scutum arm, the Norma and outer arm, or Norma arm on this diagram, the Carina Sagittarius arm, or Sagittarius as it's labeled here, and the Orion arm or spur, which comes off of it, and that's the position of our solar system. You can see circled there. We are in the Orion arm or Orion spur, if you like to call it that. Mm-hmm. And you can see that when we're looking toward Sagittarius, we're looking in toward the middle of our galaxy. And when we're looking out the opposite direction, of course, into the winter Milky Way, we're looking outward toward the vast universe beyond. So anyway, it's a major revelation just over a decade ago to map and understand really the structure of our own Milky Way galaxy. And thank you, Scott, for having me again. I will talk, I think David and I both next time will talk a bit about Pluto and about Clyde, and we will have a large cast of Astronomy Magazine editors joining us for that next program as well. Scott.
Okay, thank you so much, David. That's awesome. You know, it is amazing to think that you know, we often say that we're living in the golden age of astronomy, but to be able to map out the Milky Way galaxy the way that we have, it's just incredible. I mean, we're this little circle that you have that says the sun. That's got to be. I mean, the entire solar system's got to fit within that circle. Probably a fraction of that circle.
Yeah, because if you really, you know, the diameter of a solar system, if you look toward the edge of the inner edge of the Oort cloud, say, you know, that's about the better part of a light year. So if you're going to be generous, you could say that the diameter of a solar system is about 2 light years. And so we're talking about a disk that's either 100,000 or 143,000 light years across. It's a big place.
Yeah.
Compared to what the exploration that we know in our little solar system here. Yeah.
And just recently, they, I guess it was the New Horizons spacecraft that has somehow revised our population estimate of galaxies, taking it from 2 trillion back down to less than 1 trillion galaxies?
Well, some of those are Hubble extrapolations too, and there's a little bit of a complexity there because there are probably about 100 billion galaxies, which is extrapolated from the Hubble ultra deep fields that were shot. Okay. And those tiny areas of sky that show 10,000 galaxies. If you multiply that over the entire sky, you get maybe as much as a couple of trillion, but those are showing galaxies that are very young, very close, relatively close to the age of the Big Bang, a few 100 million years afterward. So what do galaxies do, of course, over time? But they combine because gravity is at work as well as universal expansion. So lots of small galaxies come together and make normal galaxies like ours that are much bigger over time. So maybe in the present day moment, if you will, there are 100 billion galaxies in the universe at least. Mm-hmm. That's in the visible universe. We can see right. And if you go back to the early universe, there were maybe a couple trillion.
I see.
So that's a whole lot.
That's a mind bender all by itself.
Yes,
All
it
by
is
itself. Yes, it
a big,
is.
big place. But thank
Right.
you, Scott. Thanks for the great words. We're
Thank you.
very much looking forward to this Astronomy Magazine event with you, and we'll make some noise about it in the next few days.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I asked Richard Grace to share some of his favorite images. So we're going to kind of do that in between speakers here. Richard, do you have what's the first of your favorite images that you wanted to show? I think you're muted there, Richard. There we
Haha.
go.
Oh,
A good
well,
one
let
to
me,
come
let me
to
start
right
over.
right after talking about the Milky Way here.
Yes, right after talking about the Milky Way, but this is one of my favorite images. I took it probably about 6 months into starting the hobby, and I just wanted to show it because I keep looking at the Big Dipper as it kind of cranks around in the sky, you know, right before I go to bed, thinking, just another month and I'll be able to shoot the whirlpool again. And I mean, you know, you always got to think about the targets that you have right in front of you,
Sure.
but there's also the targets that are always coming right around the corner. And I don't know. I mean, I know everybody kind of has their little thing, but for some reason I like galaxies, and I know
do
that they
too.
call springtime galaxy season, but
Mhm.
to shoot the whirlpool again, I mean, because this was before I even had a guide scope or anything. I mean, you know, I was just polar alignment, let it go.
Sure.
You know, not basic equipment, but you know, nothing too special. And to get a shot like that, I'm very happy with it. And just to come back around this year and, you know, try and crush that one would be
Oh
awesome.
yeah. You got your new camera and your new telescope set up, so
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah,
w-
it's
w-
gonna be good. And I'm also really, really looking forward to redoing Markarian's chain. Um, let's see if this pops up here. This one.
oh wow, look at that. Nice job. There's
The
all
thing,
those galaxies.
I can't get the thing to go away.
Well, we definitely see it.
Move it around like that. So there's a fair amount more galaxies that just go up off the screen there. But again, when I shot this, gosh, I probably shot this like last February or March. It was cold outside. I know that. So
Mm-hmm.
this was only a few months after starting. And I'm just looking forward to getting that one again. And as mentioned earlier, you know, the spiral galaxies and the barred spiral galaxies and the elliptical galaxies, like these guys. I
Yeah.
have to say, I found them a little boring. I was like,
Did
oh
you?
no, they don't have any definition. It's just like a big smudgy light that's
Yeah.
brighter than all the stuff that I want to see.
But
But
it's all fossil light, you know, and the billions of stars there, and it is when you look back into time like that, and knowing that those are, especially if you're able to look through the eyepiece and see that visually, or any galaxy visually, you know, you're actually your retina's getting hit by those ancient photons. It's a real kind of contact. So astrophotography is awesome because it just brings out so much more detail, color, as in the case of the Orion Nebula that you did here. But
and this one is one of the ones that'll really get you, because this was shot with a Canon T6, which I believe is the cheapest DSLR that Canon sells, an ED80 on a Skyguider. So
wow,
I mean, you know,
fairly
it
budget
doesn't
setup.
get much, you know,
Hmm.
more bare bones than that.
Okay.
And it's still one of my favorite shots because the with having the the extra infrared blocking filters and all that, you get so much more blue out of it, because like, you know, when you let all the hydrogen pass through, it almost overpowers some things, and
Sure.
I just love it. So I
Yep.
figured I'd show a couple of
Yep.
my earlier shots, and you know, kind of maybe give a little inspiration to you know, what you need, or maybe what you don't need.
Well, it shows great progress from someone that just recently got started. So that's great.
Man,
So thank you.
Just can I interrupt for just a second, Scotty?
Sure.
I think it is just wonderful to take a look at these pictures of the nebulae because they bring us back to to an article that I wrote decades ago for Astronomy Magazine called Stars Are People Too. They are born, and they are born out of these nebulas that we've just seen a picture of, and they grow and they live like our sun does, and a very steady path of middle age with a few little outbursts, but essentially they live very calm lives. And then as they get older, they get weird again, just as we do. There's the helium flash, there's the red giant stage, and for very large stars, they are they're novae, and then for the very most massive stars, you have the supernova, where the final collapse of the star's core takes place in less than a second, and then the star's outer layers are just blown to kingdom come. Stars really are people too, and I've never forgotten that. And when I see pictures like the one you just showed us, I'm reminded of it.
That's awesome.
I've always loved that line of yours, David, and it's absolutely true. Of course, that will be an immortal article. And of course, people, in a sense, are stars too, because literally the atoms in our bodies were created, the lightest ones in Big Bang nucleosynthesis, but most all of them elemental atoms in the explosions of supernovae or the merging explosions of neutron stars. So literally we're made of the stuff that mostly was created from those massive stars. So it's, it goes both ways. And, we get to see that greatest recycling program we could ever imagine going on, only one frame at a time out there in our telescopes, though.
That's right.
Well, yeah, thanks, David. And, that line, that's one of the most wonderful memories I have from our friendship. The other one, of course, being that day when we saw the explosion of the highway right in front of the offices of your magazine. Couldn't believe how we saw it, and the shockwave just went right through us.
David
They blew up a highway. It was planned, of course, but we got to see it.
And we don't want to hijack the discussion here, but just very quickly, David came to visit. It was after, in fact, a league convention in Milwaukee, near Milwaukee. And they were planning to explode this freeway and drop it essentially right in front of the old Astro Media building. And so they did that, and we watched it. This tremendous, it was like, a nuclear bomb going off and a freeway dropping, an entire couple stories. And of course, the joke going around then was that, this had actually been a care package sent by Sky and Telescope. But we were all friends, of course, the Astro and S&T editors. We were good pals,
Right.
You remember that young woman employee of astronomy who rode her bicycle under the highway minutes before they were expected to blow it up?
I think they blew a horn and sounded, a 2-minute warning for I don't know how much dynamite planted. And this young lady artist goes whizzing right past the police line down toward the, I think she survived though. Yeah.
She certainly did. But we teased her about it for a long time afterwards. That was a wonderful memory.
Well, a couple of people have joined us that are actually going to be on a little bit later in our program. Kelsey Poor from Nova Space Galleries, and space artist, astronomer, and from what I understand, soon to be astronaut Dan Durda has joined us as well, and you can see them here. It's going to be a fascinating talk, and so I look forward to our next segment. Coming up next is Libby and the Stars, and then Chuck Allen from the Astronomical League, and then we'll take about a 10-minute break, and we'll be coming back to Kelsey and Dan. But Libby, It's great to have you on our program. I think you have decided that you'll be giving a lecture on every global star party that we ever have. So it would do my heart good to see you grow up on this on our show here, and for us to do it for many years. What will you talk about tonight?
I am talking about places like Earth, which is super cool because it's like, here, let me share my screen. I made a presentation.
Great.
Yes, they're very fun to make presentations. So here's our home right here, Earth. This is what we know right now is the only habitable planet that we know has human life on it. So that's what we know of right now. Back at space camp, we did this. We were talking a lot about Mars and how we'll be sending our generation into Mars. And recently, there was some new news that people were paying $55 million to go to the International Space Station as like a vacation. And I thought that was crazy. How they're just sending people up there on like vacation for like spring break. Where did you go for spring break? Oh, I just went to space. Nothing special. So it's very interesting to talk about like human life on our planet, because I know we're the only planet out there as we know right now. But NASA has found more planets that could be just like Earth. So those are the planets that are just like Earth. Kepler 62f, Kepler 19.6f, and Kepler 44-2b. It's a long name. You know, our name is just Earth, but it's very cool. And there are more exoplanets like Earth out there, but these are the ones that NASA's like focusing on if we're ever going to send humans to these planets. Because I know right now we're trying to get to Mars, and that will take 3 years to get to Mars. And if you look on the scale of the solar system, it looks like an inch away, maybe a centimeter on some scales or something. But it takes 3 years. So we're ever going to send an astronaut into space one day to go to those 3 exoplanets, then we're going to have to like find some way to speed travel. So there's a little astronaut there. And this is Kepler 62f. And it looks a lot like Earth. It's just Earth is like 87% water, I think, on estimate. And it looks like there's more brown on the planet, like land, more land than ocean. And I was thinking about that when I was researching this, because in school we've been learning about like trees and how they give off oxygen. And I was thinking, if other planets have trees like ours, then it can produce oxygen, and then we don't have to wear spacesuits. So I was basically thinking about that like we would have terrible droughts if there was barely any water. So it's very cool to see like that we're the generation that will hopefully go out to a bunch of different galaxies one day. And I think it's crazy right now. I never thought we were going to be at the point where we were spending $55 million to go into space on a vacation. But it is very interesting to think about like life, because growing plants, that's like one of the most important things we do here on Earth, because it gives off oxygen. It's good for the environment. It's really just good for a lot of things around us. So I was thinking about that when you think about Kepler 62f. And also, I was thinking about how long it will take us to get there. And apparently it is 1,200 light years from our planet, which, I mean, it's not too bad, but compared to how far Mars is away from us and that we have to take 3 years to get there, seems like a long journey. over here is a picture of some space art, and I was thinking about like growth on other planets. Uh, this is what the artist envisioned of Kepler 186f, and it looks like in our sky, our sky is pretty basic. We just have the sun during the day, maybe a couple of clouds, and then later in the night, there's so many stars. And to look at this planet and see the huge pink star, just huge there, it looks like if you were on that planet, that would be crazy. Like to see a huge pink sun in the sky, and just like a bunch of other moons, and it just looks so like fantasy. And thinking that we're in the generation that will hopefully go up to space one day to visit is kind of crazy, thinking that like we'll be on there one day, hopefully, if it doesn't take us too long to travel. And I know NASA's working hard every day, so it's very cool to see that. This is Kepler 44 2b, and it is in the constellation Lyra. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And I was very shocked because I was like, that does not look, it looks like Earth, but there's a huge red spot just like patching it. And so I was like, what? Why is that looks like Earth was destroyed? That doesn't look like another planet like Earth. That looks like Earth was destroyed. And so it's very cool to see the different planets, how they can be just like Earth, like the same conditions, but they can look like this. And I was thinking like about like staying warm and being cold and stuff during like when you're orbiting around the sun, our sun basically. Us humans, we've lived on Earth for so long. We're so used to being on Earth that it's just bad for us to be on a place that's we could be on a place that's way too warm, but it would just be bad for us because we're so used to being in like this weather here on Earth that isn't that bad. So we could live on another planet that's extremely close to the sun, but but not as humans because we're so used to it. You would have to, it's just whatever you do, you have to be used to, going to something so warm, going to something so cold. Kepler 44 2b is orbiting the star Kepler 44 2, which I was thinking, like, how cool would it look if you were looking out into the sky and there were like 10 moons and there's like a star and you were so close, it would just be amazing. Like, think about Mercury. That would be kind of crazy to see like everything in your sky, and Jupiter. And so that's why I like to look at art a lot, because I know we can't take our telescopes all the way to Kepler 44 2b, but in our minds, when we can imagine like what it's like to be able to see and what it like the conditions are there based on scientific research, it's crazy. It just looks fantasy like. And it's just crazy to think that we're in that generation of technology to hopefully in the next 100 years or so be able to go to these planets and hopefully just start like a new full Earth, like new like another life, like more people just start a full other new Earth number 2. I hope you enjoy learning about super Earth exoplanets. It's very important in this generation because soon we'll be up there.
Well, certainly with people thinking about the challenges of what it's going to take to get there maybe living there. They are so distant, though. It's hard to right now imagine us getting much beyond our own solar system. But the humans have done some amazing things, especially when you think about it wasn't so long ago that a couple of guys were learning how to fly basically, a self-powered kite off of a beach, So not more than just 100 years ago. So, Libby, thank you so much for bringing this program about exoplanets to us. And I look forward to your next program. That's great. Okay, so I will bring us to Chuck Allen. Chuck is, as I mentioned before, Vice President of the Astronomical League. And Chuck will, he's given programs of his own to our group and fascinating points about our universe, the extremes of our universe. And Chuck is he's a master observer. I believe he's done every observing program, more than, 80 programs?
No, 38 so far.
38?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Not quite 80, yeah.
Not quite 80. Okay, well, anyways, he is a master observer, I believe, within the Astronomical League, and certainly in my book, too. He understands the universe the way few people do. And so it's great to have you on, Chuck. And it's great to have the Astronomical League as our official door prize sponsor.
Great. Thank you very much, Scott. And hello, everyone. I'd like to add something, if I may, of possible interest to David Eicher's wonderful talk about Henrietta Swan Leavitt. A little known story, 4 years after she died at a very untimely 53 years of age of stomach cancer, a letter arrived at Harvard College Observatory for Dr. Harlow Shapley, famous astronomer at Harvard, who was actually the first president of the Astronomical League. And Dr. Shapley opened the letter, and it was from the Nobel Prize Committee in Stockholm, asking for background information on a nomination for Henrietta Swan Leavitt for the Nobel Prize. Unfortunately, he had to inform the committee that she had passed away, and the Nobel Prizes are not awarded posthumously, as you know. So that's just a little addendum, but she certainly would have warranted that. I'd like to add, in conjunction with this, that this year, 2021, is the 75th anniversary of the Astronomical League. And we are taking exceptional steps this year to recognize both women who've been critical to the Astronomical League and its history, and also to astronomy generally. We're featuring them every month. We have, in fact, recognized people like Helen Federer, who was our third president from 1948 to 49, and the three longest serving the longest serving officers, including some presidents in league history, are all women. And this year, we've created a new imaging award to go along with our general imaging award, which is the Williamina Fleming.
Wow, guys, sorry about that. We had a power failure.
Oh.
Yep, I'm going to take us back live again here. Sorry about that.
It doesn't look like the broadcast was interrupted, at least on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're still streaming. That is, that's great. I am, it was really weird. It was just like I heard this beep sound and everything went blank. But it looks like we're all still here. Thanks for bearing with us if you were watching our program. And I had a little bit of a power failure here, but we're back live. So we were right in the middle of Chuck Allen and his talk. And where did we leave off, Chuck?
Well, I was talking about a new award that the League has initiated this year, which is the Williamina Fleming Imaging Award. This is for female league members 19 and over. And we did this at the request of a number of people in the league because we felt it would be a way of encouraging young women who were getting started in astrophotography to get started in this. And we talked to many of our female members and officers and former presidents, and they all love the idea. So we have created that, and some details will appear about that very soon. So moving on now, I guess, to the door prizes. Let me share the screen here. As usual, I'll start with, whoops, sorry. There we go. I start with the solar warning, and I do this because for all of us in astronomy, and for those of you who know people who have vision problems, your eyes are invaluable, and you must protect them. It's a zero tolerance type of activity when you observe the sun, and going over these warnings, especially with equipment you may be receiving as door prizes, is very important. I've said before that damage, permanent damage, can occur to your vision in about 50 times faster than your brain can make you react to seeing something too bright through an eyepiece. So it's over before it starts. You have to avoid the problem. Use only professional solar filters that come with energy rejection filters that mount at the front end of the telescope. Never, ever little welder's glass kind of eyepiece covers at the base end where heat can build up. Don't leave your telescope or binoculars around in the daytime, especially if there are kids around who might try to use them to access the sun, which they will, and I've seen it happen. Use only the certified eclipse glasses and viewing cards that comply with ISO 12312-2 standards, and never use those to observe the sun through binoculars or through a telescope. They are for naked eye viewing only. Should always consult with people in local astronomy societies about how to do solar observing safely, and always cap your finder scope so you don't burn your cheek when you're using properly filtered telescopes. Okay, so moving on now to the questions for this. I'm first going to cover the GSP 29 answers. We had a question that this object is found in the constellation Tucana in the southern skies. What is its name? The large object here. The answer was the Small Magellanic Cloud, and our winner on that question was Israel Monterosso. Question two was, what is the name of the brighter object in this image here? It is also a Messier object, and what is its correct Messier number? And what is the number of the Messier object shown in the upper left, this cluster? The answers were, this is M20, the Trifid Nebula, and this is M21. And the winner on this question was Andrew Corkill.
All right. Andrew's won a number of prizes with us, so congratulations. That's great.
He's also submitted a number of observing program submissions lately for awards.
That's awesome.
And question number 3 in Global Star Party 29 was, this nebula observed in the constellation Cepheus is officially cataloged as VDB 141 or Sharpless 2-136. What is its unofficial name? The answer is the Ghost Nebula, and the winner on that one is Norm Hughes. Okay, so now we'll go on to GSP 30 questions. We have 3 of them as usual.
Right, and
here we go.
You need to send your answers to Explore Alliance at explorescientific.com, and we will choose the answers, all the correct answers that are sent in, because you're watching simultaneously on several different platforms. So, and some of them broadcast a few seconds before others do. So to make it a level playing field, we take all the correct answers and then we choose the right, or we choose an answer at random from all the correct answers. So again, send it to Explore Alliance at explorescientific.com.
Okay. The International Astronomical Union recognizes 5 dwarf planets: Pluto, Eris, Haumea, Makemake, and Ceres. How many total moons do the 5 dwarf planets have? Add them up. For this purpose, Sharon, Pluto's moon should be regarded as a moon. rather than a coplanet. Okay.
Okay.
Question number 2. The 88 constellations represent humans, land animals, aquatic animals, flying animals, and inanimate objects. Which category is represented by the largest number of constellations? 28 of them.
Okay.
Okay, make sure you got the list. Humans, land animals, aquatic animals, flying animals, inanimate objects. And the third and final question, who was the astronomer and steady state theorist who in a 1950 radio program derisively referred to the explosive origin theory of the universe as the Big Bang, a name that stuck?
Okay.
And that concludes
All right.
this round.
So send your answers to Explore Alliance. Here, I'll put it here. At explorescientific.com. There we go. And at this point, we will take a 10-minute break. We'll be coming back to Kelsey Poore and Dan Durda, and that'll be followed up by Molly Wakeling, who normally does astrophotography with us, but she does a lot of our live spots that we have on the Global Star Parties. But this time she's going to give a presentation. So, I look forward to that. It's kind of, how do you get started in astrophotography? But I think she'll take us way beyond that. So
it's raining cats and dogs here, so no live viewing tonight. Although there is a cat over here.
Okay. All right. So we'll take a short intermission and we'll be right back.
Do we remain live?
Yeah, we're going to stay live.
Okay.
Yeah. So the mics are hot, okay? but if you need to grab a sandwich or something, this is the time to do it. So.
I was working on building a catio, a little outdoor cat enclosure for my cats. I'm working on that in the garage. It's a lot of fun.
So Chuck, do you have another presentation that you might give later, or?
Yeah, if you need it,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
have one. Mountains in the solar system.
Mountains in the solar system. That's cool. So what we're going to do for the final hour of the program, we'll go through our next segment here, and then I'm going to release the login to our Zoom waiting room. I'll put it in chat, and people that are watching the show, provided they have a good video and audio connection and that they have something to present about astronomy, whether it's a live view through their scope or an image that they made or something that they can share. We're, be kind of like an open mic towards the end. And we haven't done this before, so it's first time, but they'll go into a waiting room. They'll be checked out by Kent Martz. Kent will make sure they're all set to go, and then he'll give them the link and the Zoom credentials for this show. So I'm looking forward to that. And that is the strangest power failure I've ever experienced. If we didn't go off the air, I don't know how that happened. So that's very amazing. My computer turned off, completely off.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it had to reboot.
That's really surprising that the stream stayed on. Wow.
That's very strange. So what did it look like? Was it just blank or something for a little bit, or what happened? Or was it just...
People in the chat were saying they didn't see an interruption at all. So I suspect that possibly, depending on how you have the stream set up,
Yeah.
that it was running like remotely, and Chuck was doing his talking, and yeah, didn't really see anything according to people on YouTube. Just kept talking.
Yeah, it's a no change. Scott just disappeared, as I often do. Cameron Gillis says, you've got an awesome multicast platform set up. Big contribution to the global amateur astronomy community. Thank you. Well, it's all of you guys that make all this happen. So, I just sit here and I'm the guy behind the curtain. So, with a big loud voice sometimes. So.
Yeah, I should ask you at some point how you have the stream set up, because what I have going for the Astro Imaging channel works decently, but I feel like it could work better.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay, so here we go. We are back. And yeah, Molly, I would be very happy, or to anybody that's watching the show, perhaps you're doing some astronomy outreach, or you want to just learn how to do streaming in general. I'm happy to share what I know about simulcasting, and I've made lots of mistakes, so I'm happy to help you avoid some of that stuff. But let's turn our attention to Nova Space Galleries and Kelsey Poor. Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on to our program and bringing Dan Durda with you. You're your gallery was started by your father, Kim Poor, and I'm still learning about his influence on the space art community and the space exploration community as well. I know that you grew up around astronauts and space explorers of all kinds, and seen incredible art from the far reaches of the aesthetic to highly technical, very super realistic art. So it would be it would be interesting to learn more about that. And I know that you have an event called Space Fest. Is that correct?
That's right. I'm wearing a Space Fest hoodie right now.
Awesome.
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. So, but you were mentioning that maybe, that there's still COVID concerns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this is a concern for everybody that's running events right now, whether it's astronomy events or any kind of event at this time. We're all kind of teetering on whether or not a summer event can still happen or not. And I wish the best of luck to Space Fest. And I want to go. I want to go to Space Fest, and I want to be there. And you and I kind of already talked about maybe I could be the live cast arm of that. So I'm excited about that because I've never been to the gallery. I've never been to rub elbows with all these people. But you're bringing them on one by one, and this time you have Dan Durda.
I do. I have Dan Durda with me. And if you don't know who Dan Durda is, you're going to learn real quick because he does so many things. And I've written an intro for him, and it's pretty long. So bear with me because he's got a pretty lengthy resume.
Awesome.
He's our artist of the month for January for Nova Space. And I'm going to put a link in the live feed for Facebook after my introduction. So here it goes. Dr. Dan Durda is a professional astronomer, an author, a public speaker, a physics, chemistry, astronomy, and geology teacher, a pilot, a cave diver, a scuba diver, a planetary scientist, and a space artist. He was a research associate at the Lunar and Planetary Lab at the University of Arizona from 1994 to 1998. And that was when he met my father, Kim Poor, who encouraged his artwork. He is currently a principal scientist at the Southwest Research Institute in Boulder, Colorado, with an affinity for asteroids. Dan was a finalist in the 2004 NASA astronaut selection and is one of the 3 Southwest Research Institute payload specialists who will fly on multiple suborbital spaceflights with Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin. You can find him speaking on the Science and Discovery channels, and he has a TED Talk on YouTube if you're ever so inclined to look that up.
Wow. There are occasionally you run into people that have done so much. It's like any one of those things could have been a lifetime career, right? So
I'm blushing.
It's humbling. It is. It's humbling. It reminds me of some other people I've met, like Story Musgrave, who is a lifelong learner. He's, I think, in his late 80s right now, and I think he's probably still
seven PhDs, I think.
Yeah, I think he's still going after another one, and and he's an artist, neuroscientist, and fixed the Hubble Space Telescope, and on and on. And so it's awesome to have people like you and him in this world. Alan Stern's another one, that I can think of.
Yep.
And there's several. Dan, how do you fit? I mean, I'm going to ask you several questions, but how do you fit all of that into growing up and going, of course, going through school and all the rest of it. I'm very, very curious how you had the energy and the mind to do it.
I don't know. It's just life.
It's just life.
It's just life. Just doing things I enjoy, right?
Right.
Hi, Kelsey. Hey, thanks for the intro. That was great. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Great to be here. Thanks. Yeah, Scott. I don't know. It's just you just do you do what you like, and it comes easy, right? So
Right.
I got scuba certified when I was like 15 or 16, whatever the. It's so long ago, and I can't remember what the legalities of how old you could be when you could be certified, but I could swear it was about 15 when I did the certification. Yeah. Jacques Cousteau was a big influence, so I was like, I knew I was going to spend a life underwater one way or the other.
Sure. And you start off as an astronomer. Where are you working?
Yeah. So that I going back to the Cousteau thing, I wanted to be a marine biologist for as long as I could remember growing up. That's what I wanted to do. But then Carl Sagan's Cosmos premiered in 1980, and that sutured together the multiple interests I had in just about every aspect of science you could think of. And through Cosmos and the way Carl and his wife Anne, the way they wrote that series and the way it was presented, it occurred to me that that's what I really wanted to do, because that seemed to be like all science wrapped up together. I could do that in astronomy, and with because of Carl projecting his interest in exobiology and alien life and so on, that taught me that my interest in biology, I could still bring in my interest in the physical sciences too, and do that through astronomy. So in 1980, when I was in 10th grade, I decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a PhD in astronomy. I'm going to be an astronomer. That's what I'm going to do. So I was pretty single-mindedly focused since then. So
and that is one of the things that I hear. That would be something that Story would tell you. That's something that Alan would tell you. So I think it is having the maybe a lack of confusion. Okay, where so many young people are very confused as they go through their teens and 20s.
Well, but that's okay too. This is the thing. The lesson I learned personally was, yes, I was very single-mindedly focused growing up that way, but then you come out the other end of that with, doing what you love to do, and that's great and all, but then you realize, but there's so many other things to learn about and see and do too, that it's okay. You realize later on as an adult, it's okay to not necessarily know exactly what you want to do when you're in 10th grade. Right. And so when kids come and they know what they want to do in 10th grade, I say, that's great. That's wonderful. When other kids come, it's like, I don't really know what I want to do. And I say, well, that's fine too, because that means that you got a whole universe to explore and figure out, and you'll find what you love. So either way, don't worry about it.
Yeah. Right. So, tell us a little bit about your professional astronomy experience. What was that journey like?
Sure. Yeah. So, University of Michigan for my undergrad work. I had coming fresh out of Cosmos, I had a really intense interest in exoplanets and SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And I was pretty sure that coming out of undergrad, that's what I was going to be focusing on doing, was some sort of work with SETI and extraterrestrial life and things like that. And I really wanted to go to Cornell, for grad school and work with Carl, right? Of course, right? Didn't get into Cornell, but I ended up with a great offer from the University of Florida for graduate school. And it turned out that a fellow there that I ended up working with worked with Carl at Cornell.
Awesome.
And but the difference was that Stan Dermott, my advisor, my PhD advisor at Florida, was responsible for discovering the IRAS dust bands, the infrared astronomy satellite that was launched in 1983. Discovered dust bands out there in the solar system that appeared to be, circling the sun. And Stan did some interesting Stan's work was primarily celestial mechanics and understanding the dynamics of dust and little things out there. And he made the mental connection, understanding where these bands are observed in the sky, that they corresponded with some big clumps of asteroids in the main belt called asteroid families, the Hirayama asteroid families. These are basically, clouds of debris of asteroids that were broken up eons ago. And Stan made the connection that these dust bands are probably associated with the grinding down of those families of asteroids over time. So he set me to work on problems related to that, and using those dust bands as a way to calibrate how much total dust the asteroids were making, all the other asteroids were making compared to comets, say. And so from that, I got very interested in asteroids. I got very interested in collisions and impacts. And that took me to work at the NASA Ames vertical gas gun, doing some actual impact experiments, hypervelocity impacts. And so most of my career in astronomy ever since has been dealing with asteroids and the way they evolve and how impacts and collisions dominate their lives. Wow. And most recently, that has brought me to the place of being very interested in what's going on the surfaces of little asteroids, the near-Earth asteroids that we're now in the process of exploring with the NASA OSIRIS-REx mission, and the Japanese have just come back from with Hayabusa 2, bringing samples back from Ryugu. Sure. And my fascination as an astronaut wannabe applicant was what's it going to be like when we actually go there in person to these little objects, right? Because this is it's a very alien environment, right? We've been to the moon, we've done the spacewalks on the moon, tromping around in the lunar dust in the dirty environment there, 1/6 G field, but still substantial gravity. We've done the spacewalks in microgravity or 0 G outside the space station, outside the, fixing the Hubble Space Telescope and so on. But we've never combined the two together in the sense of doing work in microgravity, but in a very dirty, dusty environment like the moon, right? So what's that work going to be like on the surface of these little objects? It's a very alien, very non-common sense sort of way of working. And I've just had that, the science interest in the processes that go on, microgravity geology, which is something we really don't have any hands-on experience with, but also the operational perspective of working there as an actual person, part of the, working with your tools. And as a cave diver, I'm very interested in checklists and checking through your gear. And that also is a very, it's an analogous environment, right? It's neutrally buoyant. You're working in a dusty, dirty environment at the bottom of some of these caves. And so I brought that interest with me from cave diving too, of the operations aspect of working on these little objects. And so all that's tied together for me. And so my research now is primarily looking at, that microgravity geology. I'm doing a lot of microgravity experiments, launching payloads on Blue Origin's New Shepard, basically boxes of rocks, if you will, carrying up little payloads that are the next best, other than going to an asteroid. The next best thing we can do is take an asteroid simulant to 0 G environment and start playing with it and learning what it's like, right? Sure. So that's kind of what I've been doing.
That's a lot.
Most recently.
That's a lot. And so, I want to talk also about these things that you'll do with Blue Origin and the suborbital stuff that looks like is in your near future here. But you have a creative side. I've seen your paintings; they're beautiful. You paint. You also do digital painting. You do paint with the wet stuff and also digitally. What influence did Kim Poor? I mean, what did Kim see in you? And did you know that you had this creative side about you, or was this something that was kind of, someone said, hey, you should try this, or you should express yourself this way, And why did you choose painting?
I'm glad.
Why did you choose painting? You could have done it in a number of different ways.
Long story there. I sketched as a kid. I did little drawings in here and there. My sister painted and things like that. So I kind of had that little bit of a creative side, a little bit, I suppose. But when it came out, sort of my grad students in this faraway land called Tucson, and I grew up in Michigan and went to school in Florida. And for years, I see catalogs for all these great artwork and things like this. Well, in 1989,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was Pasadena. I found myself there, and found myself, meet the person, kind of set it aside up here at least. When I moved to
Hey Dan, you're freezing up a fair bit.
In what night? Oh, bad connection. Oh well. How are we doing? Are we back?
We're back now.
Are we kind of smooth?
Yeah, we are back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm not freezing up too much. Yeah, moved to Tucson for postdoc work. January of '94. Took the opportunity to walk into Nova Space galleries in person for the first time, and was just jaw dropped to the floor. Just absolutely stunned with the artwork in there, and at that moment decided, you know what, I want to try this. I want to see if I can do it, and went to the art store and just bought a bunch of stuff and started doing it. And somehow or another, whether I was dumb enough or naive enough or whatever, after a couple of little test paintings that I did for myself for fun, I took them into the gallery and talked to Kim about them, and he was like, he was very encouraging. He was like, well, these are not bad. Keep at it, kind of a thing, and
right.
I kept at it. I brought another batch, or a couple of them in there, and Kim said, well, hey, yeah, let's, you mind if we take this one and this one and I'll put them up in the gallery, see what happens? I was like,
awesome.
You bet. Sure. Not expecting anything to happen.
Sure.
And yeah, so no, it was all Kim. Kim was incredibly, encouraging and so I'm always support space, and that's family. It's family. And, that was the big of it. So I just kept more that days working with the wet stuff. But I always had an aim of doing things digitally, playing around in Photoshop and so on. Where that went to was I'm talking about Avatar, and Avatar struck me in a particular way at that time. It was the first time I had seen in a photoreal way a depiction of the biology on the planet. We've been thinking about this kind of stuff, like extraterrestrial life, for years, and to see it finally done, where I felt like, oh my God, I'm actually in one of these worlds and seeing what it's like. It just hit me so strongly. I ended up seeing the movie like 15 times in the theater just because I couldn't get enough of the visuals. Sure. And that really pushed me over the edge to finally go digital. So that's where that came from. I'm attempting to do a share screen here. I don't know if I'm getting it going or not. I don't know why it's, I don't know if you're seeing anything at all. Oh, I know. Hold on a second.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Let me keep selecting some stuff here and then do something and see it. I'm on my iPad, in case you haven't guessed, with all the jiggliness going on here, and sharing things on my iPad. I've not quite learned all of the details of that yet. So let me see what happens when I do this.
Okay.
Are you seeing that?
Yeah, and that comes across really nice.
Okay, very good.
Unfortunately, the video's been a little freeze frame from time to time, but this is coming over very, very nice.
Well, as long as the audio is coming out okay, then you'll be able to see these pictures. Hopefully that'll work. So this is an example of one of the early digital things I did when I first started. I think I did this right back in about 2009, or about 2010, just after I got my digital art computer sort of thing dedicated, and it's like, let's see what I can do with digital stuff. Where this started out, I do this a couple different ways. This is the base picture. This is what started it. This was a walk on the Canaveral after one of my zero imagery when I go on travels, and this was just a picture I took as reference for waves and things like that. Well, I came back home and decided, let's see if I can doctor up this photo a little bit and remove the sky, change the color palette a little bit, render in some other stuff, and imagine an exo world. So that's an example of sort of matte painting techniques that are, that you can play with that way. So similar thing here, right? Top little frame there is a set of images I took in Death Valley on one of our International Association of Astronomical Artists workshops. Middle frame is what I ended up doing with it by rendering in some new stuff. The bottom is just a close-up showing some of the little alien plants I stuck into the landscape. Here's another example from Moab. Not every place is going to have a beautiful, living, rich world full of life. Some are going to be pretty poisonous and noxious. That started as just a picture in Goblin Valley that I tinkered up. So
wow, looks very
another one from Death Valley. This was
yep.
Another one from Death Valley. The astronauts weren't there, of course. I pulled out the leaves and the weeds digitally and put in some astronauts and imagined ourselves on Mars. This is actually Mars Hill in Death Valley, a place that has a terrain actually very much like some of the basalt lava flows and broken up stuff on Mars. So it's a great place to do Mars art. Alien life, always fascinated with the idea of life on the moon of an Jovian planet someplace. I mean, it's the standard sci-fi thing, right? And I just think I would love to have the experience of being able to stand on one of those worlds and look up and see a beautiful gas giant planet in the sky, just dominating the sky. And so that tends to dominate a lot of my artwork.
Oh yeah, right.
Pure digital render in this case, not one single photo element in it. It's just all mathematically created landscape and some sculpted weird alien plants, question mark. I don't know. Are they plants? I don't know what they are, but whatever they are, they're alien.
Yeah, I think they're plants.
The fun thing about digital is it allows me to actually do some of the hardware art that I was never able to do painting, just because my painting skills never got to that point. But I can build things in 3D, texture out lighting, come up with fake exploration companies. I actually made a logo for my own new fictional company I made called Exploration Systems Incorporated. And I thought, well, what should the logo of this fake Exploration Systems Incorporated look like? And maybe some of you can guess as what I'm getting at with the 3 circles there. But
sure.
And that turned into this, just a idea of some interstellar spacecraft being constructed in low Earth orbit and getting ready to depart. So I call this one Starship Departure. And
awesome.
Fun stuff like that. I'm a huge Star Wars geek and love Star Wars. And now that I can do digital stuff, I can recreate some of the things in Star Wars, like the hallway of the Rebel blockade runner, and just go there anytime I want to and look at it from any direction I want to. And just so you know, I am detail oriented enough. So in case you're guessing, every single panel and every switch and every button in this is exactly screen accurate from as they were on set. So
wow.
I never do anything like this halfway. So I researched every panel on every part of every frame. So made sure I got it right.
How many hours do you have in it?
That was a couple of weeks worth of work to get this one done.
Wow.
And then that art has been transitioning lately into the physical. I've been building a lot of models lately, and again, doing what I do, which is usually like anything worth doing is worth overdoing, is kind of my motto. So if I'm going to do models, it's going to be like the actual studio scale models. So this is my reproduction, my replica, if you will, of the Gold Leader Y-Wing from the original Star Wars movie. So it's built with every piece pulled from the same models that they built the original from, painted to the same detail that the original was, built to the same scale that the original was. So this is like almost 28 inches long. So it's pretty darn big. And just to give you an idea, there's my model on the right compared to the actual Gold Leader filming model on the left. Just to give you a sense of what those things were like. Here's a back view of it. And then just again, to give you a comparison of what I'm trying to replicate, the actual filming model on the left and mine on the right, just trying to kind of capture the spirit of all the when you see these when you see the real models up close for real, you realize they really, a lot of those details don't read on screen. So they have to like overemphasize them when they build the model so that they kind of, read out right. So that's where the art's been going lately. So yeah, the creative side.
Wow. I can see you working for Lucasfilms or DreamWorks or something like that. That's really, really cool. you touched briefly about Blue Origin, and from what I've learned, tantalizing details that you would be one of these people that would be doing some near Earth orbit, space exploration. And so, what can you tell us about that before we let you?
Anything you want to ask? So again, luckily enough, when I started here, I hired on at Southwest Research. Alan Stern hired me on in 1998 with the offer that, hey, look, I'm starting up this project to go fly. Basically, we're going to be flying telescopes, cameras, imaging systems in the back seats of some of NASA's aircraft. Okay. And I know you're into aircraft. I know you're thinking about being an astronaut and all that. So it's like, hey, I want you to come on in and help me with this project. You come on in, we'll be flying F-18s in a couple months. And I was like, okay. So, and he did not lie. I hired on, came in August of 98 and Air Force Base training to fly the F-18. What he had in mind back in those days was basically using the aircraft as flying observatories. What it evolved into was it put us in a position of being only astronomer world who had been ready and themed. A lot of these are very similar to what was getting ready to do with Space One, to go and meet with Bert and talk about flying Spaceship One. And that evolved into our work with Virgin Galactic. What ended up evolved into the suborbital science game. And basically, with our experience with zero gravity flights and high performance jet aircraft flying and pressure suits, and Alan interviewed to be an astronaut as well, and all that. It put us in a position to be kind of the forebearers of recognizing that this next generation of commercial suborbital usable vehicles that were, tourism industry, we recognized that it gives us, based on the opportunity to get in the field. This is our chance to get up into our environment and do our work there. And so we really, here at Southwest, primarily through Alan's vision, pioneered this idea of researchers flying to space on these vehicles.
That's awesome. Which he will be doing.
So with Alan's work, first NASA selectee to be able to go and fly our funded research on Virgin Galactic, and I'll be one of his flight backups for that. Kathy Olkin, also at Southwest, is our third flyer, and eventually Alan and Kathy and I, all three, will be flying both Virgin and Blue Origin. So I can't wait. It's it's the one piece of the space flight puzzle I've not gotten to actually get to see the Earth. Wait to do the research hands-on. It's really amazing to get your hands on something in zero G. It's a neat feeling, and can't wait. It's gonna be amazing.
That's awesome. Well, that's fantastic. I think we've run out of time. Dan and Kelsey, thank you so much for coming on and showing some.
Kelsey, thanks for the invite on. And Scott,
thank you so much, Dan.
Very much like to have you on again. So we'll have to talk about that. Until next time, Kelsey, thank you very much. Thanks for sharing, Dan. Take care. Our next.
You bet. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Molly Wakeling. Molly is, she's a scientist, astronomer, student still. I think she'll probably be, again, one of these lifelong learners as well. And, always a pleasure to have Molly on the Global Star Party. She is, I had the pleasure of meeting her briefly at the Advanced Imaging Conference, and she was showing a beautiful image of Rho Ophiuchus that she had taken with a I think it was a relatively modest lens. But the print was so colorful, so beautiful that I really wanted to snag it from you and hang it in my office here. But I'll have to get a signed one from you or something. But Molly typically shows live images from one of several telescopes that she owns that she operates in her backyard. She is a regular on other social media that's focused on astrophotography. And I'm sure she does much more. But tonight she's going to talk about kind of how to get started in astrophotography, and to give you the tips that a lot of us are hungry to learn. So, Molly, it's all yours.
All right. Yikes, I have to follow Dan here.
Right.
Hey, put in a good word for me on the astronaut selection committee, would you? I haven't heard back from them yet. Right. So it's raining, like I mentioned during the break, it's raining cats and dogs here, so no live imaging tonight, but I figured I'd put together a quick presentation on how to do some astrophotography the cheapest and lightest weight way that one more or less can, and a couple of different ways of doing that and what you can do with a camera and a lens. So go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see, bring that back up. Okay. So the background picture here, I'll be showing another copy of it later on, but I got to go to Chile back in 2019, and this is with like an El Cheapo Nikon 35mm f2 lens. And yeah, awesome Milky Way there for sure, out in the Atacama Desert. So when you think of astrophotography, when you think of gorgeous space images, you might think of things like the Hubble Space Telescope, or the enormous ground-based telescopes that are on the Earth, or really fancy, like professional, semi-amateur setups, or even a nice telescope setup. And you can get great images in all of these ways, but all these ways are, of course, rather expensive. You don't have to have any of these to do some kind of astrophotography and to make some really neat images. So I'm going to walk through what you can do with just a camera, a lens, and a tripod. Oh yeah, I was going to say that on this slide. So DSLR plus tripod equals happiness.
Yes.
It's been a little goofy slide. There's a lot you can do with just those tools without needing to have a telescope. So for one thing, you can make killer time-lapse videos of the Milky Way going behind some hills, or people moving about at a star party, or a telescope tracking the sky over the course of the night, sunset, Orion setting or rising, something like that. And that's just a matter of plopping a DSLR onto a tripod and letting it run all night. So the way that that's done is for $30, you can get an intervalometer. You can get a reasonable DSLR. I really like my Nikon D5300. It runs about $400 for the body, and then the lenses, another $100 or so for probably both of the kit lenses. For $30, you get one of these intervalometers, and you can set it to take 15 to 30-second exposures all night long and see the Milky Way go across the sky and make a really cool video out of it the next day. So no special equipment needed, just DSLR, tripod, shoot JPEGs, intervalometer, so that you don't have to sit there hitting the camera button all night. Having an AC power supply helps with this as well. And you can get those for 20 or $30 on Amazon or other places.
Very cool.
You can take star trail images. So this is a shot from the Southern Hemisphere, again from the Atacama Desert when I got to go in 2019.
Wow.
So we're seeing the South Celestial Pole here, which was really wild to be polar lining to the south and watching the sun cross the sky to the north. It was wild.
Yeah.
And
what is this trail that I see kind of going across?
that's me walking by with a headlamp on.
Okay. Okay.
Either me or somebody else. I think it was me. I can't quite remember. But yeah, anytime you see those kind of ghostly trails that look like that, it's somebody walking by with a light on.
Sure.
So the way that's done is there's a piece of free software called Star Trails. And that's the software that you use to make the Star Trails image. Once you take a couple hours worth of 30-second or 60-second exposures, you might think that you do one long exposure, like a couple hours, but you're gonna saturate your camera if you do that. So really you just take a whole bunch of 30-second or 60-second or whatever exposures back to back to back to back as closely spaced as your memory card can write. And then it's always nice to have some cool foreground in there. I had the observatory domes or a cool rock formation in Zion National Park or a barn, whatever you can find. And just like with the time lapse, you want to set that to manual mode and pick your ISO and pick your exposure time. In order to prevent dew from forming on the lens, I picked up a neat trick. You can use those those hand warmers that you bring with you when you're going out in the cold to work on stuff.
Sure.
You can rubber band those to your lens and it will keep the lens warm enough to not form dew or frost over the course of the night if you don't have a dew heater. So that's a cheap and easy way to keep dew from forming. And again, if you can get an AC power adapter, highly recommend, because you don't have to go out there and change the battery and have a gap in your star trails. So what the software is really doing is anything that moves in the image gets summed together, and you end up being able to see the stars move. This is back in the Northern Hemisphere here, and I made a little video of it just to kind of show what the summation looks like. And the red streak there is an airplane in this case. Another thing you can do with nothing more than a DSLR and a tripod is do some really cool wide field or skyscape or nightscape images. This was my first attempt at it back in 2016, I think. I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico for a work trip and convinced the group that I was with, the rental car, were coming back into the city, convinced them to stop about 40 miles out of the city and right about sunset. And I was prepared. I brought my DSLR, plopped it on a little tiny, like 6-inch tripod on the ground on a side road just off the freeway, and took about 15-second exposures of the Milky Way and used the free software Deep Sky Stacker to stack them and got a really nice shot of the Milky Way from the side of the road.
Beautiful.
Thank you. This was, I processed it in Photoshop to get a nicer look than the original image that I posted. But you can use Deep Sky Stacker and GIMP, which is also free, or Photoshop's like $10 a month. It's not that bad. But yeah, just DSLR in a little itty bitty tripod.
Amazing. Oh, look at this. I love this.
Yeah, this was one of my other favorites. Again, in Chile. With that 35mm f1.8 lens. I can't remember exactly how much that lens costs. I think it's less than $100. It's just a cheap f2 lens, f1.8 lens.
Look at what you did with it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some pretty significant coma out toward the edges, but if you crop your frame, then it looks all right, especially when you're, 35mm is pretty wide field of view. So you're not really gonna notice unless you go pixel peeping. So, interesting foreground. I have this is a 45-inch Dobsonian that was in the process of being built when I was down in San Pedro de Atacama. I did get to look through it at the end of the week, which was really cool. Yeah, this is a single 10-second exposure. And then I just did some post-processing in Photoshop to increase the contrast and fix the colors and whatnot. And yeah, came out nice. DSLR on a tripod.
Yeah, if that doesn't inspire awe, I don't know what does. This is, when I'm at a really truly dark site, like the Nebraska Star Party or Bryce Canyon or
Right.
Yosemite or many of these places like this, or yeah, also I've been to Chile and seen the Milky Way like that. It's just, it just takes your breath away. It really does. And it's seared into your mind and really gives you the feeling that you are, we're on this spaceship Earth and we're flying through space, so, and here it is. It's amazing we can just breathe the air that we breathe and live the lives that we do and look back into the universe with the instruments that we build. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And in the southern hemisphere, you can see even more clearly that the Milky Way is a galaxy, because you can see the bulge at the center, and you can see how it tapers out at both sides, as opposed to here in the northern hemisphere where we only see like the top half of the bulge and then it kind of fades out.
Right.
So you really get the sense that you are in the plane of the galaxy, and that's really cool.
the professional astronomers that I was meeting in Chile at CTIO were saying, you guys do not have a Milky Way in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, it's definitely something else. And when those Sagittarius objects are at zenith, you get much sharper views on them through the telescopes. And Jupiter was at zenith, which gave me the best view of Jupiter I've ever seen, through like a 24-inch Dobsonian, just incredibly sharp. Yeah, it was. I'll be going back to that same place and near San Pedro de Atacama for sure.
Wonderful.
Here's that shot I showed on the intro slide. This is again a single 10-second exposure on an even cheaper Nikon that I still use sometimes. It was my first DSLR. Bring it along for doing time lapse and wide fields and stuff like that. Again, a 35 millimeter f1.8 lens, and I even got a little meteor streak there in the background there. So
wow,
kind of like that on that one. The other thing you can do is you can even do some deep sky. And this is still a camera on a tripod, no tracking. This is from a Bortle 5 sky site actually. So I just have my Nikon D3100 plopped on a tripod with a 70 to 300 millimeter lens that had been given to me. It's an older, fully manual lens. I had it at 70 millimeters, and at 70 millimeters, I could run about 6 seconds before the star started to streak. So I took over 100 6-second exposures, and I just readjusted the tripod every 20 minutes or so to keep it more or less on target. Then I stacked it in mosaic mode on Deep Sky Stacker. And lo and behold, we have the constellation Orion with the Orion Nebula here, and the Flame Nebula, and the Horsehead Nebula, and of course a nice star field to go with it.
Right.
So yeah, you can do deep sky without tracking at all, or without a telescope.
That's the best mount of all, isn't it?
Yeah.
No periodic error. No backlash.
Yeah, exactly.
No electronics, nothing to fail. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just if you're going to stack, shoot in the RAW format. If your camera has dark frame subtraction built in, then that can be a handy feature to use, or else you can take dark frames and load those into Deep Sky Stacker. Just do a little test run, see with whatever focal length you're using. I think there's like the rule of, was it 400, 500, something like that. But I find it's easiest just to test it out. So like, all right, let me try 10 seconds. All right, no streaking yet. Let me try 15. Okay, yeah, now there's some streaking, So it depends on the focal length you're using, how long you can shoot for. But usually like with these wide fields, you can tolerate a little bit of streaking because when you zoom out, you're not really going to see it.
Right.
Now, if you want to put out a little bit of extra money to really enhance your capability, you can get the star tracker devices that I'll show on the next slide that let you just a basic little sidereal tracker that you can throw your DSLR on and you can take longer exposures. So this is a 7-panel mosaic from the Texas Star Party. Each frame in the mosaic is 60 seconds long. using the kit lens that came with it. No, nothing special. And this is my favorite shot of the Milky Way I've like ever taken.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So the Skywatcher Star Adventurer, the Ioptron, and the Vixen Polary here, they each run about $400, so a lot cheaper than your standard telescope mount. They're very lightweight. Toss it in a backpack, carry it with you, take it on a plane. I brought my Skywatcher Star Adventurer and my Vixen Polary with me down to Chile and had no issues doing that. They run off little 5-volt power supplies or also off of AA batteries. The little 5-volt power supplies, like the kind you can charge your cell phone with, will run all these. And you just throw your DSLR on there, and you can use a longer camera lens since this thing tracks. And the Star Adventurer and the Ioptron have counterweights, so you can load it with even heavier lenses. And you get it roughly polar aligned using the little polar scope on the back, and point that camera wherever your heart pleases, and take a whole bunch of exposures, and you can create you can do deep sky imaging for less than $1,000 total. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with that. The Omegon Mini Track over here is even cheaper and even simpler. If you want no electronics in your life at all, this thing, well, besides the camera, I suppose, this thing is just wound. And you wind it and it unwinds at the sidereal rate over the course of an hour. And then you have to rewind it. It'll track the sky for you like a little barn door tracker.
That's amazing. Can be totally off grid.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're going to use one of these, it's good to have a sturdier tripod since it needs to be able to handle the extra weight of the actual tracker. I have a little carbon fiber tripod that folds up to be about 2 feet long that I got from when I went to Chile. And I actually, I got a tripod weight bag for it. And I put one of my telescope counterweights in it. Or sometimes I put just whatever, some rocks from around or whatever I can find to weigh it down to lower the center of gravity so it's more stable. The tracking is not as good as a telescope mount, of course, so you still have to keep your exposures relatively short, and the length of your exposures will depend on your focal length. But I've been able to get away with 2-3 minutes generally up to about 300 millimeters of focal length. And if you're really good at polar alignment, then you could probably go for longer and be 5 minutes at 300 millimeters. So here's an example of what I've done deep sky-wise with a star tracker. So this is with the Vixen Polary, my Nikon D5300. I took 100 2-minute exposures at 85 millimeters. And this is actually in a Bortle 5 sky, believe it or not. And at a pretty slow focal ratio because this lens is not a particularly fast lens. And this I processed in PixInsight, and I was able to pull out a lot more detail than when I used to process in Deep Sky Stacker and Photoshop. But you can still do reasonably well using those cheaper bits of software / easier to use bits of software. And I was able to pick up quite a bit. We have M78 over here. Of course, we have Orion and the Flame and the Horsehead. And I even picked up the Witch Head Nebula, which blew my mind. I was able to pick that up from Bortle 5 with 2-minute exposures and a slow lens. So yeah, this image was very exciting. Despite the fact I'm using an unmodified camera, unmodified DSLR, I managed to pick up some of the red as well and got some nice red in the Horsehead. So yeah. You can, again, less than $1,000 for this image.
I love the nebulosity in that whole region.
Yeah. There's dust, there's nebula, this whole area. There's something filling in every pixel. That's for sure. Here's another one where there's something in every pixel. This is with a nicer camera and a nicer lens down again back in the Atacama Desert. This was using a modified Sony A7S mirrorless camera, my Star Adventurer, and the Rokinon 135mm f2, which I was borrowing at the time, but I just recently purchased my own thanks to the latest round of stimulus checks. So plugging that back into a worthy market. of, you know, you can recognize M8 here and
Yeah.
M20 and, you know, the Milky Way.
Incredible.
Thank you.
So detailed.
Here's that row of Fiocchi that Scott had mentioned.
Yes, this is my favorite right here.
Yeah, it's my favorite too. I have that print that I got printed at AIC in 2019. I got it framed and it's hanging on my living room wall at the moment. Again, with that Sony mirrorless camera, the Rokinon lens, which is a really fabulous lens. It's fast, it's f2, and it has a really good optical quality. And it only costs $500 actually, which if you're into camera gear, you know, it's pretty cheap for a lens, and it's certainly cheaper than a good telescope. So again, still, you know, keeping it on the cheap side here and still able to get some incredible images. Now, I will say I've attempted this target from the Texas Star Party, so from a dark sky site, using my regular DSLR with a cheaper lens, and have never been able to get a result quite like this. So sometimes putting out a little extra money for better equipment is highly worth it. But I got some reasonable images of it before with my cheaper stuff. One final note on focusing, because this is a question that a lot of people have. This is an issue that a lot of people have trouble with when they're shooting with a DSLR and a camera lens, is how do I focus at night? Because autofocus doesn't work when it's dark. The camera has to be able to see the target in a video type frame exposure, like 1/30th of a second, which you can't see stars at that short a time. To focus, if you're trying to image, if you're trying to do some astrophotography, what I do is, well, if you have the moon available to you, then that's very helpful. But if not, because you're imaging somewhere dark, then I point it at somewhere where I know there's a lot of stars, you know, maybe toward the Milky Way, and take about a 5-second exposure, and then I zoom in, and like when I'm looking at the picture on the back of the camera, and if the stars make little donuts or big donuts, then you know that you're out of focus. And when they start to look pixelated, then that's when you know you're in focus. With these shorter focal length, with pretty much any camera lens you have, you're going to be undersampled on because you have more pixels per area of sky for that focal length, where the stars are really like smaller than a pixel. So your stars will look pixelated. So usually I take a guess, I put it at infinity, which for an automatic lens, it's not all the way at the end, all the way where the focuser stops. It's usually back a little bit, so that when the camera is focusing, it doesn't slam into the end of it when it's autofocusing. So I have a good idea now of where infinity is on most of my lenses, but you know, take a guesstimate, take a picture, and then fine tune from there until your stars look pixelated. And you need to refocus anytime you change your, if you have a zoom lens, if you change the zoom, you need to refocus. And if you pick up and move your camera, it's pretty likely that you've dropped out of focus. Right. Unless you have the type of focuser that you can tape down, in which case I highly recommend taping down your focuser. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'll be checking the chat, or Scott's got his eye on it right now if anybody's asked any already. But yeah, space selfie from the Texas Star Party here.
Yeah, just some comments here. I mean, people are very inspired by your work. You know, the Norm Hughes mentions that you could make a mark with a Sharpie once you reach focus for future reference. That's if you don't mind a Sharpie mark on your camera lens, you know, so. Good
idea.
But, you know, I think that you gave some great tips there. And I would recommend, before you go to someplace like Chile or someplace that's very, very dark skies, that you do a lot of this in your backyard. Yeah. And you practice, you know, until it becomes second nature for you. And then when you get out there, you'll do awesome work just like Molly does. So
you can practice the whole procedure from your yard. your pictures aren't going to be as good, but you can focus, you can learn how to polar align if you're using one of the tracker rigs. You can practice, figure out how to use the intervalometer, figure out how to use the manual settings on your DSLR if you don't do that already. And you can do all of that before you go out to your dark site so that you're not wasting precious nighttime hours trying to get your camera to work.
Molly, may I ask a question?
Yes. Yeah.
I've had some good luck with eclipses with this focus issue by simply using the back screen and enlarging the image, and without actually taking a picture and enlarging it. Have you tried that and had any luck with it?
If there's a bright enough star, like if I have Sirius or if I have Vega, then the video mode on my camera at a high ISO is enough to pick that up, and I can use the live view feature and get that star in focus live. But I don't always have those. So doing the take a picture and check method works for when you don't have either of those two stars, or if you don't have a moon to focus on either. Right. But yeah, you can use the live video mode on your DSLR if you've got a bright star available to you, and that works very nicely as well. Or if it's daytime, you can use a really distant object, like if you're going to or put a solar filter on if it's coming up on solar eclipse time.
I can't speak for all focal lengths, lenses, or f ratios, but I've actually managed to autofocus on stars.
Oh, really? Yeah, I think possibly some better cameras might be able to do it. For instance, that Sony mirrorless camera, because it's mirrorless, you can see stars on video mode on the Sony camera, so it might be able to autofocus. Although the Rokinon lens doesn't have autofocus, so I didn't test that out. So yeah, some of the more sensitive cameras may be able to autofocus.
It might be about the autofocus type too.
Yeah, and you have to have a lens that autofocuses and stuff. And only 2 of my lenses have autofocus. All the rest of them are manual.
my Sigma 150 to 600, I've managed to autofocus with the Canon 90D.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
I guess it's dual pixel autofocus. Just I had to turn the ISO up a lot though.
Yeah,
I want to clarify that. I turned the ISO up a lot to make it work, but
yeah, it's worth a shot.
Just wanted to throw it out there.
It's worth a shot.
Thanks. Yeah, and that's the thing about astrophotography is if you hear people say that you can't do something, take it with a grain of salt, because just try it. It might work for you. You never know.
Yeah, that was in Bortle 6 too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was messing around with it when I was trying to get NeoEyes, but unfortunately NeoEyes hovered right above Baltimore, in Baltimore's lights. So. Sorry.
Let's see. Clear Light 58 says he uses a Batinoff mask on some of his lenses to focus. And you can buy them in 77 millimeter and 72 millimeter sizes for some lenses.
That's true. I forgot to mention that I do own a Batinoff mask at the 77 millimeter size, and I use it on my Rokinon, or I use it on my longer focal length lenses, where I have it on a tracking mount so that that star stays steady and I can see those spikes. So I use that for my longer lenses for sure. And Batinoff masks are excellent, and I can just use when I have one of my Astro cameras attached to the Rokinon lens, then I can run it in video mode and stretch the histogram in SharpCap, and then I can see that star really easily with a super overstretched histogram.
You can buy them in the largest lens objective that you have, and use some step up or step down rings to
great.
Yeah,
looks like you have the whole set.
Yeah, I think the whole set on Amazon is less than $20.
There you go.
So,
that's very good.
Just little rings that just step up from one. Sorry, focus.
Okay, so what's going to happen next here is that we're going to take a 10-minute break. We'll come back with Chuck Allen, who's got a presentation of the mountains of the solar system. Is that right? Yes. Okay, and then those of you who have logged on, to the waiting room, I'm about to post a link to our Zoom waiting room here in chat, okay? And if you have a presentation about astronomy, you have, live view through your telescope, an image that you would like to show us, something like that, that'd be great. We do ask you that you stay on topic about astronomy. This is not a place to sell personal views or, you can certainly talk a little bit about it, but it's not a place for politics or, other things like that. So, but definitely we want to hear about your astronomy. And we'll take on as many of you as would like to be on the program tonight. This is kind of an experiment for us, but you'll go into a waiting room first. You'll have your audio and video system checked out, and you'll be meeting with Kent Martz, and he will vet you and then give you the log on for this program, which is of course another Zoom meeting room. So I'll post that now so you can see what the link is. You just click on that link and it'll take you, if you have Zoom on your computer, it'll take you straight to that waiting room, and we will see you in about 10 more minutes. So thanks very much. And Molly, I thought that was an awesome presentation. Beautiful images. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take off and keep working on building my catio.
Take care, Molly.
Your catio, is that what it's called?
I'm building an enclosure, a 6x6 enclosure in my backyard. It's going to have a tunnel leading from my bedroom window out to the enclosure with a cat door. In the window, and then they can just come in and out, and because they really want to go outside, but I want to keep them safe, so they'll be able to hang out outside, enjoy the sunshine, and enjoy the wildlife. And so I'm building it out of a bunch of 2x2s and chicken wire. So the assembly is going pretty well so far.
Excellent. Yep, we'll have to have a full rundown on that with plans and 3D drawings and interviews with the cats to see what this is like.
Oh my gosh, that's a great idea. That's going to be my next video on my channel.
Very cool. All right. Thanks, Molly.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Have a good night, all.
Good night.
All right, Chuck, I'm going to get some water, and we'll be back, and we'll see who's joining after this break here.
Okay.
Thanks. Well, we are back, and it looks like for right now it's myself and Richard, the Astrobeard, and Chuck Allen from the Astronomical League. But I know that Kent has at least one person that's going to be coming on with us here in a few minutes. But Chuck, I'm very intrigued by your presentation. The audience absolutely loved all the presentations you've given so far. So,
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's turn it over to you.
Okay, let's start screen sharing here. All right, slideshow. Current slide. Okay, this is going to be a program about one of my favorite topics, mountains. I used to do a lot of mountain climbing in the late 80s, 1990s, and early 2000s, including some in South America. And it's an activity I loved. And so we're going to talk now about mountains, not just on Earth, but we're not going to exclude the Earth. We're a planet too. So we're going to be looking at mountains all through the solar system. We're going to start with this one, the highest mountain on Earth, of course, Mount Everest, 29,029 feet above sea level. It was first climbed on May 29th, 1953 at 11:30 a.m. by these two gentlemen, Edmund Hillary on the left of New Zealand, Tenzing Norgay on the right from Nepal. And they got lucky. History was lucky for them. They were a backup team, not intended to go to the summit unless the summit team of Charles Bourdillon and Charles Evans failed. And Bourdillon and Evans got within 300 meters of the top of Mount Everest and had oxygen tanks freeze up on them and had to turn around that close to the top. And so Hillary and Tenzing Norgay got the green light to go for the summit, and they made it, becoming world famous as a result. In fact, there are mountain ranges on Pluto named after both of these guys. It's always nice to be remembered in that kind of way. It's not necessarily true, though, that Mount Everest is the highest mountain on Earth. This is a mountain that I had the opportunity to climb in the year 2000. It's called Chimborazo in Ecuador, and it has a claim to being the highest mountain in the world also, because its summit is further from the center of the Earth than any other point on the Earth's surface, including the summit of Mount Everest. That's because the Earth, of course, is somewhat oblate. Chimborazo is very near the equator, and hence its summit is further from the center than the top of Mount Everest. But the real claim for being the tallest mountain on Earth belongs to Mauna Kea. It's actually a 35,000 foot tall mountain. The only problem is 21,000 feet of it's underwater. It rises off of the seabed, and we see the top 14,000 or so feet of it, on top of which we have some nice observatories, as you know.
Right.
Looking at our moon, we of course have significant mountains, the highest of which are in the Apennine mountain range. And the most significant of those is Mount Huygens. And Huygens is a very significant mountain, about 18,000 feet tall. That's about 4,000 feet taller than Pikes Peak above sea level. And nearby, though, in the lunar highlands, we can find some higher terrain. It's in the Leibniz Mountains. And this is really an uplift. It's not a mountain range as such, but these mountains, the Leibniz Mountains, rise to a height of about 35,000 feet above the average radius of the moon. And so that would really be the highest point that we know of on the moon's surface. On Mercury, we have the Caloris Basin, and it has a very significant central uplift, which you see here. And that uplift rises to a height of about 10,000 feet higher than the average plane of Mercury, which you see out here, which is pretty significant. Venus, though, has a much taller mountain. This is Maxwell Montes. Maxwell Montes is 36,000 feet tall. We can't see it visually, of course. This is a radar image. We can't see it visually because of the cloud cover, but we certainly have imaged it. And The surface temperature on Venus, of course, runs at about 863 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pressure of the carbon dioxide atmosphere is about 90 atmospheres. That's the equivalent of being 3,000 feet deep in water. However, if you were at the top of Maxwell Montes, you're in less pressure and in a cooler environment. So it's at the top of Maxwell Montes up here, you would be in a nice balmy 716 degrees Fahrenheit and only about 1,500 feet deep in water as far as pressure is concerned. Now, the mountain that seems to hold everyone's record for being the highest mountain in the solar system is Olympus Mons on Mars. It rises 69,841 feet above the average radius of Mars and about 85,000 feet above this plain that lies below it. It's a very, very large, flat sort of mountain. It would cover the entire state of Arizona if it were placed there. And so it's not steep by any means. Now here's a comparison of Olympus Mons with Mount Everest. The base of Mount Everest is about 17,000 feet above sea level, and then it rises to 29,000 feet. And here's Olympus Mons by comparison. So it's quite a significant mountain. Now the question is, will this hold the record? Is this going to end up being the highest mountain in the solar system when I'm done here? So far, so good. Let's see what happens. We go next to Ceres. And on Ceres, the largest of the asteroids, we find Hula Mons at 13,000 feet above the average surface plane of Ceres. This is a cryovolcano, very similar to ones that we have found on Saturn's moon Enceladus and on Neptune's moon Triton. It outgasses water and methane and ammonia, but not hot lava. It's cold material. And this is the closest cryovolcano to the sun on this particular world. Not very tall. But there's another asteroid out there called Vesta. Vesta is one of the largest asteroids also. And on Vesta, we have a mountain called Rhea Silvia. And Rhea Silvia rises 72,178 feet above the average radius of the asteroid Vesta. That's our winner. That is the highest mountain in the solar system. It even beats out Olympus Mons. Saturn's moon Mimas, this is another image of Rhea Silvia taken from a distance. You can see this huge bulge here on the asteroid. Incredibly tall. Now, on Jupiter's moon Io, we have a mountain that's been produced by volcanic material. Of course, Io is very close to Jupiter, so as it rotates, it gets stretched one way and then stretched another. And just like you would take a piece of metal and bend it and rebend it and rebend it, it gets hot. And so Io is a very, very volcanically active moon. And this mountain has built up to a height of about 59,664 feet above the surface plane, or the average radius in this case of Io. Saturn's moon Mimas has a very significant crater. It makes it look like the Death Star. And that crater, called the Herschel crater, is 86 miles in diameter, which is about a third the diameter of the moon. And it has a tremendous central uplift, as you can see its shadow here. And that central uplift is 21,040 feet tall above the average radius. If this mountain were in the United States, it would be taller than even Mount McKinley or Denali in Alaska. Saturn's moon Iapetus has also a very tall peak that you see here. It's on a ridge, and it rises to 63,360 feet above the average radius of that particular world. Now, Uranus's moon Oberon has what's called a limb mountain. It's detected by its position on the limb. It rises 36,900 feet above the average radius of Oberon. This is higher above the plane than Everest is above sea level, and that Maxwell Montes is above the average radius of Venus. So again, very significant, especially considering it's on a small moon. This should not be surprising, though. If you were to sit in your dining room and pour salt on a table in a pile, it it would only get so high, and then the grains would begin to fall off because of course, gravity. On Mars, that pile would get a lot taller. On Oberon, it would get taller still. So it's not unusual to find these very tall mountains on very small worlds like Vesta and Oberon. But one of the really interesting mountainous features this is just an example of what I just stated as far as piling up salt grains. One of the most interesting features you'll find in the solar system is this cliff on Uranus's moon, Miranda. Now, Miranda is only 300 miles in diameter. It is a collection of blocks that many people think are the result of Miranda being destroyed and recollecting again gravitationally, leaving very sharp features like these cliffs that are known as Verona Rupes. These cliffs are 33,000 feet tall. It's about 12 miles tall. So the question I have is, wouldn't it be fun to jump off of these? I mean, after all, a 150-pound person standing on Miranda would only weigh a third of a pound. So if you jump off these cliffs, you figure, well, it's going to be a very long, slow ride to the bottom. It might be kind of fun. And sure enough, if you did jump off of it, after 10 seconds of falling, you would have only gone 50 feet off the top. The trouble is, it's a 12-mile drop, and you're going to pick up speed there like you would anywhere else, only at a much slower rate than you would on the Earth. Unfortunately, by the time you got to the bottom, you would hit with the same impact you would feel if you jumped off a 25-story building. So it's not advised. Pluto, of course, has ice mountains, tremendously tall mountains of ice that would crumble under the pressure of under gravitational attraction on a larger world. But on Pluto, they managed to get much taller. There are ice mountains here as tall as 20,500 feet. Picard Mons is the highest of those, and it lies in a mountain range that's named after Tenzing Norgay. So he's got a mountain range with the highest mountain on Pluto, and there it is right there. Very interesting little world. So that's a review, and this is kind of the summary of all the mountains that we visited during the course of this little presentation. Wow. Mount Everest is here. And as you can see, it beats out the moon, it beats out Pluto, beats out Ceres. Maxwell Montes beats Everest. Mauna Kea, though, if you take it from the base of the ocean, it comes very close to Maxwell Montes, not quite. The Limb Mountain on Oberon, a little bit taller, and that Io volcanic mountain, Buasala Montes, almost 60,000 feet. The equatorial bulge on the Iapetus, Olympus Mons, and the winner, Rhea Silvia on Vesta at 72,000 feet. And here's our little Verona Rupes down here. If you want to take that jump, do so, but you're going to need some awfully good springs when you get to the bottom. Okay.
Wow. Wonderful.
That is it.
Goodness. So I think that there's probably some presidents of astronomy clubs watching this one. They're going to be asking you to do, do these presentations all over. Well, Mark Helton, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you on the Global Star Party. We asked for people to join us for the final hour, and I think it's was it pretty seamless for you to go into our waiting room, and I guess Kent was waiting for you over there?
Oh yeah, this was great, and Kent is wonderful, and I want to thank Chuck. I have absolutely enjoyed all of his talks in the last, I think at least the last 4 star parties. You took us on a tour of the universe, the largest and smallest. Every one of those has been great. I love watching Astrobeard stuff. I'm a beginner, so not as a camera person, but as an astrophotographer. So yeah, and it was very easy. Kent's wonderful, very nice, happy he's done with COVID. And you guys have all been really very welcoming. I'm very happy to be a part of this.
That's great. That's great. Is there anything, have you already made some astrophotographs? Have you started?
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, first of all, the shot behind me I took in 2017.
Beautiful.
I went to Tennessee, Westmoreland, Tennessee. My friend and I went to Cincinnati where I grew up and stayed with a friend. We camped out in Kentucky at a lake. And then I said, let's find a place where not 100 million people aren't going. And we found this little town called Westmoreland to shoot the eclipse. And I think I commented in one of the meetings that I had 4 cameras set up, and I will never do that again. That was a big mistake.
Right, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't experience the eclipse when you're just running from camera to camera. Or
well, the coolest thing though was that I Facebook lived it. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but back then I Facebook lived it. So I had a bunch of my friends and friends of friends watching, and I had a monitor set up to my camera so that all the kids that were in the park that we found, which was in the middle of Westmoreland, could come over and watch the eclipse as it was happening live, because I had my camera, I was tracking it with one. I saw Molly talked about the Star Watcher. I had one of those going. And the other cool thing was that I never would have thought of, the mayor of the town sent the electric company over to shut the lights off around the park.
Well,
and
awesome.
I actually interviewed not the mayor, but the electric company. I said, who told you to come over here and do this? The mayor said there's a bunch of people over at the park, go shut the lights off. And I was like, oh yeah, because when it gets dark, and sure enough, when it went total, the lights around the neighborhood came on, and the lights in the park, it was dark. I thought that was the nicest thing that,
That's cool.
Yeah, so if you're ever in Westmoreland, Tennessee, which is north of Nashville, say hi to the mayor and tell him, I think he's an astronomy buff.
Elton sent you.
Yeah. All right, so let me see if I can. So do you have my screen now? Oh,
Not
no,
yet.
wait.
No. Yeah, you have to pick.
See?
Wow. You're a beginner? Really?
That was taken 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
That's with a Sony A7S.
Okay.
Or excuse me, A7 III. I don't have the S. That was and a UHC. What is the filter? It's a UHC. Hang on, I got to put my glasses on. UHC E filter, ultra high contrast. And I did the beginning of the processing. I have a friend who I've gotten hooked on astrophotography in the last 3 months, and he went out and bought a bunch of equipment, and but he's really good at processing. So he put this in Photoshop, and
Wow.
if you saw the original photo of this, it looks like a green photo with stars and a smudge. And what we were able to pull out of it is just amazing.
Yeah, the image processing is the other half of astrophotography, that's for sure. But you got the data, and that's what counts.
Yeah, so this is an unmodified. This was before I got a coma corrector.
Okay.
I now have a coma corrector, which makes the outer stars a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, this was taken 2 nights ago.
Beautiful.
Again, you can see a little bit of green tinge because we're still having trouble pulling the UHC filter out, but we're working on it. But yeah, the detail from the Sony A7 III is just, I am actually going to buy a designated camera. I now know which one I'm going to get, and but I'm amazed what I can do with the DSLR. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's great.
And then the last one I'll show you is this. This is the M51A. I took this about 2 weeks ago. This was with the coma corrector. So the outer star, this is cropped in a little bit, but I don't know what galaxy. I'd like to figure out what galaxy this is right here. I have to look at the chart. But again, just to be able to get a shot like this with a, I have a Celestron mount, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Which I'm having some problems with, but and then I have a 6-inch Newtonian that I've been using, and it's been so much fun. the pandemic has been horrible, but it's given me time to really work on this hobby of mine.
That's great.
So
That's
I have
great.
a bunch of others, but I won't bore you with them. I have a lot of stuff that I've been doing.
Let's talk a little bit. I mean, so that people can get to know you a little bit better, Mark. I know you've watched our programs, and you have you've been involved in astronomy for a long time. I mean, I realize you've been doing astrophotography for not a whole lot of time, but you must have had an interest for a while.
I actually started in Cincinnati when I was a kid. I went to the and I actually just read about this telescope. It's in downtown. It's in actually right outside of Cincinnati, and supposedly it was one of the first. I'm trying to figure out how not to share my screen. Oh, there we go. Stop share.
Don't worry about that.
There we go.
There we go.
It's a refractor. It was actually designed before the one that they built at the Harvard Harvard Astrophysics. And I went there as a kid and I saw Saturn through that refractor, and that was it. I was sold. That was, and then I would go up on the roof of my house outside of Cincinnati, and I would sit with binoculars and charted the moons of Jupiter. And then I ended up taking a college level intro to astronomy class when I was in high school. But never really, I mean, I'd always been into astronomy, but it was only in the last few years that I actually started getting more serious about it. So I've been into astronomy for most of my life, but not at the level that I've gotten to in the last, 3 or 4 years. So,
right. Well, people are commenting in chat right now, and they love your astrophotography, and they think you've done excellent work. I would have to agree with them. So, we're going to be looking forward to seeing more work from you. Is there anything that any more you'd like to share? Or anything
I just really love to say that you guys putting this together. I'm serious. I do a lot of work for companies. I do a lot of marketing work, and I do a lot of advertising work. And the customer service in this world right now is the most important thing that you as a company can do. And to be able to reach out to people, not just for you as a company, but just to bring people together. I mean, I've learned in just the last 4 or 5 months that I've been watching these, I have learned so much. And,
That's very kind. Thank you.
I mean, Molly's been great to watch. Astrobeard, I just, everybody. And the comments are friendly. I don't live far from Vermont, so getting up to Stellafane was something I was planning on doing for the first time this past summer. Hopefully, I'll be able to do that this summer. The gentleman from Quebec,
Norman Fulham.
Oh, Norman Fulham. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Anybody out there that wants to steal my idea, I want to do a documentary on him. I just think that he's an incredible.
You mentioned that in one of the shows.
Yeah, he's an incredible character. He's just like, he's just somebody who basically is self-taught, and now he's making 50-inch mirrors with a home built, essentially I took a dairy truck and I turned it into a.
I know.
I mean, when I heard him talking about that, I'm like,
he's
you took it.
Musician. He's he blows me away because I know from being in the industry and being in the manufacturing side, how difficult it would be. I mean, I watched people reconfigure vacuum coating chambers that were designed for making silicon wafers to convert them for optics. It's not easy. Okay, this is not easy stuff. He built his whole system from scratch.
Oh, I know. When he said, well, I used to go to Pittsburgh to get my mirrors done, and they closed, and I was going to buy their stuff, and they wouldn't sell it to me. So I went and got a dairy truck and threw 2 pieces of a dairy truck together, and now I'm pressurizing, and then I figured out how to make a mirror that's, thinner than what you would normally make. When you guys did the star party on the Wilson, and you see the truck taking that mirror up the hill, and here this guy is building a 50-inch mirror.
Right, 65-inch mirrors even. You know,
Really? So
yeah,
bigger than the Wilson.
bigger, bigger than Mount Wilson. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. You know, he's kind of like. I mean, Elon Musk is self-taught, completely self-taught, and most of the stuff he's doing. You know, and I look at Norman. Norman, I mean, he bared his soul on the show. You know, he had drug problems as a musician.
Oh no, and the guy you had on last week, Carlos.
Right, Carlos Aragon, another guy. You know, being homeless and you know, strung out on painkillers, and you know, and then found through astronomy, really is you know, a salvation for, you know, to revive his life, and he pays it all back by, you know, giving away thousands of meals to homeless people and giving them inspiration from through his telescopes, even during a COVID pandemic. Okay. You know, he gets approval from the city of Tucson to use plexiglass shields.
Yeah, the little shields to put over the. Yeah, I was like, wow, this is like
this guy. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. And you know, I hear a recurring story a lot. How astronomy helped people in many different ways, just completely allowing you to reframe, you know, all of you, what you thought your problems were or whatever. You know, you look at these pictures of galaxies, and you know the model or the visualization that David Eicher had on the show today of our Milky Way galaxy. You know, with a little, you know, showing where our little dot of our solar system is in the Orion spur. You know, and where our galaxy's flying with billions of other galaxies. And,
yeah, it's just,
you know,
yeah,
this amazing, incredible, expanding universe. It's amazing.
And it's amazing how many people still don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say that there are people in the club that I'm a member. I'll give a little plug for my club. It's the ATMOB, which is Amateur Telescope Makers of Boston. I joined them about 4 years ago, and they have some heavy hitters. And you know, it's just amazing. You know, there's people in that club who can sit there and look up at the stars and tell you exactly what everything is. And I'm not like that. But even if I say to somebody, oh, that's Orion or that's Cassiopeia, you know, they're like, oh, really? How do you know that?
How do you know that? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. So that's the Batinoff mask that I was commented on. So all I did was took Astrobeard said, I took this one doesn't have any filter in it, but you could just use a regular UV filter, and these Batinoff masks fit right inside. You just stick them right inside the filter. So this is for a 72 millimeter, so that has a filter in it.
Oh, that's cool.
And then this one is a 77 millimeter. The other thing that the Sony A7 III does is it has a hyper gamma type of a setting and it really helps with focusing. Some of the newer cameras have this where you can go and you can put it in on one of the preset buttons on the camera where it it expands the ISO greatly. So now all of a sudden a very dim star becomes a very bright star. So that makes it a lot easier to focus. I'm very sold on Batinoff masks now.
Yeah, me too. I've used them, and it's just it's such a precision way to focus, you know. Right. So, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll say is, once again, thank you for everything, you guys. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Mr. Batinoff himself. That's right.
Can I ask you about the clear ones? Do they work the same way as the?
They not only work the same way, I would say that they work quite a great deal better.
Really?
Because they let through all the light, and as opposed to knocking out half the light, so you can still use them on dimmer stars or less exposure time. Just makes it faster, easier. And if you're trying to focus in real time, you almost want as close to video as you can get. You know what I mean? So you're not like move the knob, wait a second for the exposure to happen, move the, you know, that's if you're still moving the knob, not pressing a button.
I'm still moving the knob.
I'm still moving the knob too.
Yeah, it was 15 degrees out here the other night, and I can now run my camera from inside. I can run everything from inside via USB cables.
Oh, that's nice.
Sony told me I couldn't do it. They said we don't know how you can run us. I have a 60-foot USB cable, and I run a USB-C into my Mac, and it runs I can use the Sony program for image capture. I still haven't figured out how to get my Sony into Nebulosity or one of those yet. But the other thing, I lost track. But anyway, yeah. So that's been, it's just been cool because it was so cold out there the other night. But I still have to run out. I have coyotes that literally were running up the driveway they were out last night, but I wasn't out last night. But I've had coyotes, I've had skunks. The guy from Wilson, he talked about the cougar, I think, that chased him down the mountain that one time. Yeah. Oh, the only other guy I want to talk about that I just thought was fascinating was when you did the Werner von Braun club meeting.
Right.
And the guy, the older retired gentleman who built the Frankenscope.
Oh yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
I absolutely loved that. That was the most Rube Goldberg thing. But it was perfect because he said, he said, I have a problem. I have a Dobsonian. I don't know how to track. And instead of sitting there going, well, I'm going to just get rid of it and go out and buy one. I mean, I've never seen that kind of, that was amazing. I looked at that and I saw people commenting kind of like, oh, I can't believe he did that. He's reinventing the wheel. Well, yeah, but somebody had to invent the wheel.
That's true. That's true.
I just thought that was.
Never tell an amateur astronomer he can't do something, because they'll figure it out somehow.
Oh no, with 3D printing now and all the other things that are out there. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of stuff I've got, being in the TV business, I've had to jury rig and Rube Goldberg more things than just doing what I do for a living. I've worked on this. I worked on this show Zoom on PBS for 7 years. So, so the only other thing I'll do is plug my my new Instagram. So I'm out there with the billions of other people on Instagram. It's Great Neck Observatory.
So and all like one word, great.
All like one. Yeah, I live now in a place called Great Neck, which is in Ipswich, Massachusetts, and I went from Bortle 1 to Bortle 5.
Awesome.
So it's a lot darker out here, but the coyotes can be a bit of an annoyance. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. This has been fun. I love these meetings. I really do.
Thank you.
It's helped me through the pandemic.
Again, we're going to do the final hour program every Global Star Party from here on out. So, if you want to join, you want to share your story, share your images, you got a live image through a telescope, something like that. Love to have you on the Global Star Party. This program has been watched by a worldwide audience.
That's the other. I love that. The guys from down in South America have been.
Yeah, they weren't on today, but.
No, I love the guy. I also love the guy, and he's on his 12-story balcony in. Is it Sao Paulo or?
Yeah, it's Caesar. He's in Buenos Aires.
Buenos Aires. Yeah, I'm like, hey, just goes to show, if you want to look at the stars, if you're stuck on a balcony 12 stories up in the middle of a big city.
Yep. He got us live images of the total eclipse from the 2020 eclipse from Argentina. When most of the other places were actually clouded out. Wasn't great resolution, but we got the excitement, which was really cool. So. And it's also awesome to have Richard Grace has been on all of our programs, I think.
All Tuesdays.
Yeah, the Astronomical League has been with us to support our programs and be with us with the global audience. They're now doing their own Astronomical League live presentations, which is totally cool. We've got so many more other programs coming up. Next Global Star Party, and you can be Mark, if you want to join us anytime. I
Thank you.
love your enthusiasm and your insight. But we will be on next Thursday, not Tuesday, but Thursday, because it's Clyde Tomba's 115th birthday. Okay. And so the editors and the contributing editors of Astronomy Magazine are going to be co-hosting this. The Astronomical League will be there. David Levy will be there. So it's going to be a real who's who of contributors to the amateur astronomy world, which will be a lot of fun. But please join us. So
I will. I was actually doing two things tonight because the App Mob just got a new 17-inch telescope that they're going to be using for AAVSO work. And so they had a thing. I had one screen tonight with you guys, and the other screen was they were teaching people about the new CMOS camera that they have for it's going to be totally remotely operated. It's ready to go. They've got the pillars ready to put everything up on. They just can't do it yet because we're at the MIT Haystack Observatory. That's where the clubhouse is. And the MIT right now, we can't go up there because of COVID. But as soon as that breaks, they're going to be mounting the telescope up, and it'll be open for scientists as well, I guess, as part of the thing with this new scope. But yeah, they were teaching us about the CMOS cameras. And so it's been learning a lot.
that's great. Thank you, Mark. That's awesome.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep watching, but I'll
stay with us here. Richard wants to share a little bit more before we call it a night. So,
right on. I guess first we'll start here. I got the ED80 secured on top of the
it's nailed down.
Comet Hunter. Good and solid now.
It's very solid.
Yeah, we still got some work to do overall, but we got that one on good and solid here. And let's see. Here was Neowise. This was my variant of it. Pretty up close and personal.
Aqua green color of the comet head there. It's beautiful.
Let's see. Quick here, a little horse head image that we did. I believe that was on stream.
I think it was. Yeah.
This guy wasn't on the stream, but we got a good shot of that, and all the rest of these were all from the stream here since August. This was from the first show.
Yeah, look how sharp that is.
And beautiful. That was the Great Globular Cluster and Hercules. And then we had the Western Veil, what we did on the show, and the Eastern Veil on the show. And the second one that we did was the dumbbell. And one of my favorite ones, not the best, but that was still shot with a First Light 130. So got to put that one out there. And then overall, I got to thank Explore Scientific, because this one here was one of my first shots that I messed with on the moon, and it helped to get my new scope that's going to be coming soon through the astrophotography contest. And I love this shot because this one came, about an hour after the sun came up, just to get the blue and everything, and kind of just the way I wanted it. And I still love that shot. So,
yeah, it's beautiful.
Just a little.
You'll have to enter into the Astronomical League astrophotography contests. We're sponsoring that at this time, and so that will.
Is that the one that starts in February?
The deadline would be to be determined at this point, Richard.
Okay.
Because Scott's just offered to help us with it, and we're trying to get it back on track. Yeah,
that's right.
Cool.
We're trying to figure out the rules. And by the way, nice job picking up 6207 in that M13 picture. It was a nice moderate view, a wide view.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Worked
that's
out.
Awesome. Well, that's
Mark, if I can add something.
Yes.
First of all, thank you for your very kind remarks earlier. I really appreciate that. Your work is fantastic. Can I ask you how you your tracking is just superb. What are you using?
I have well, for those shots, I'm using a Celestron AVX, which I bought used, and I'm having some slight, it's drifting. I have to figure out why it's drifting, but it's been drifting. It could be my polar alignment. This is what, Scott, I will say that that's one of the things that I'm very interested in your mounts, is that no matter how hard I try to polar align, and I know that this is it just seems like that is the one thing where if I don't get it exactly right, it messes up the entire night. And right now I'm using a full frame camera.
Yeah.
So I don't have to be super accurate when I'm looking for, stars
sure. Right. So you can
but,
be a little off on pointing maybe, but getting a great polar alignment does make everything just a lot better. You might consider things like a pole master device. QHY sells those. You could learn how to drift align. That's typically the way that I go. Just because it takes time to do drift alignments, but I just love the process of it.
Well, the hardest thing that I have right now is that I'm kind of forced to use their program. I haven't figured out how to get the Celestron program to talk to either Stellarium or one of the other, because it's kind of a rudimentary program. It doesn't have really good, the charts aren't really good.
So this is what I would recommend to you, that you learn how to manually polar align. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Then you can use your electronics, but just go through the motions. Okay. Because if you did a good manual polar alignment, that is, that's especially if you do a drift alignment and that you're the proper offset from the pole and everything. Any misgivings that that you might have had in doing an electronic alignment are mitigated because you've got a great polar alignment. What you can do is just kind of go through the process of it, of maybe doing a 2-star alignment or even a 1-star alignment. Get on something more or less overhead. Don't try for things near the horizon because you have atmospheric refraction.
Right.
Okay. Get a little overhead. Get on a star that that you feel is not too close to the pole, maybe not straight overhead. And then just sync on it. All those go-to mounts have a sync feature. Sync on it at that point. It should be able to find everything else from there. Okay. And
yep.
That's my recommendation. So.
Are you guiding?
I'm not. I've had to sell a number of things, and I sold the friend that I was telling you about out in India, and I sold him some of my stuff that would have, just to get me through this time. But I had the ASAR Pro, and I had a camera that I was going to be using for guiding. That'll come back eventually, and I'll start to do that as well. But I have also I've learned about stacking. That's one of the things I was learning about tonight in terms of doing flats and darks, and that's stuff that's new for me. But the drifting for me, just so you know, Chuck, when you were asking about, my tracking is really good once I get that set. It's slow, as I take exposures, they move across. The stacking programs, if it doesn't get too far off, can bring it back. But, this, like I said, this is all stuff that I've been learning. And it's interesting how I find that with all the forums, there's 10,000 ways to do all this stuff.
That's right.
And it's trying to find someone or a group of people who kind of, there's Cloudy Nights, and there's a few of these other sites that I've been trying to learn from, and there's a YouTube video for everything now. But I've really found that there are 1,000 ways to do the same thing, and it's just figuring out which one works for you. So yeah, it's fun. It's frustrating. I mean, there are nights when I waste the entire night. I get the stuff back and I look at it and I'm like, well, that was, but that Orion Nebula was shot 30-mile-an-hour winds the other night. I was shocked.
Wow.
I was out and I said, you know what? It's clear. I haven't had a clear night in 2 weeks. I'm going to go out and set up, and the wind, it was howling, and I was shocked at how well I mean, the atmosphere must have been turbulent too. So the stars, if you look at that photo, the stars are not super, super sharp, but I'm like, hey, 30-mile-an-hour winds. I was very happy with that.
Right.
The camera I'm looking at is the 533, the ZWO 533. It seems to be the one that's going to match my scope the best. So that's my next.
That's the next acquisition.
Yeah. Can I just show you one other or one or two other, and I don't want to keep.
Please do.
All right, hang on. So that's Neowise.
Wow, that's beautiful.
That's.
Well, I can tell you're a pro photographer. Very nice.
Yeah, I actually have one. I couldn't find it, but I have one shot with the space station going through the shot. It just happened to. It's not in great focus because I swung around right when it was coming by. But and then let's see, and then this was my closer view of. And you can see a little star drift on this one, but I was
okay. There's, it's the comet, and you got the dust tail, you got the ion tail. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and the thing is that I'm shooting to the north, and there's not a big city, but it's big enough that there's a lot of sky glow. And Neowise never really got very high in the sky, at least not here in New England. So fighting the sky glow to get decent shots was, and again, I am not the best at processing, so I think I could get even more out of this. I do shoot everything with raw photos.
Yep.
And then this was the other night. You have to look carefully, but that's let's see, what was it? It was Mercury is here.
Okay.
I think, no, this is Saturn. This was the three of the planets when they were in conjunction.
Okay.
Jupiter. Let's see, which one's Mercury? Mercury's this one,
Mercury's
I think.
Got to be way down.
Yeah, this is Jupiter, this is Mercury, and this is Saturn. So I was and that's a jet going into Logan Airport that just happened to be going by. So. Anyway, there you go. I mean, I've been doing all the geeky stuff too. I've been trying to, I have a really, really great south. My view is mostly southwest to southeast. I have almost clear all the way, all across that. My northeast to northwest is blocked by pine trees. So I have to wait till things like some of the galaxies get really high before I can shoot that. So, but anyway, yeah, thank you.
There's some comments here. Norm Hughes is recommending that you download PhD and do drift align. That's what I used on my AVX when I had it.
Okay.
Guy named Tal, he says, I polar align with SharpCap's polar alignment tool. I've heard that's good too. And the capture off and the capture off of the tracking scope has been working amazingly well. Another guy chiming in too with PhD too really likes it. John says, I bought a Celestron Vista Pix. I imaged lunar eclipse and looked at this on my television. I think you need a memory card because the memory slows so much. Okay. Anthony Mountjoy says, having to sell your equipment to get through these times is an all too familiar story these days. Stay focused, better days and nights ahead. Okay, that's right. Chris Larson says, thank you. Thanks to you and the Astronomical League for such a consistently great program. This is my 4th or 5th time at this meeting, and I learn many things each time. I joined the Astronomical League at the end of December, and I just started the Universe Sampler Observer program. I'm in quite rural Northern California, and you guys and the Astronomical League is how I get my astronomy education. Hoping to start a local club with like-minded people one day, early workday tomorrow, but can't bring myself to sign off. Okay, let's see. Norm Hughes says, welcome to astronomy. Never perfect every time.
Exactly.
Right. Guys, it's awesome. You guys are a wonderful audience tonight. I look forward to more of you joining us for the final hour. You'll get your shot February 4th with Astronomy Magazine editors and with the Astronomical League. So please join us. I think you'll find it's a lot of fun. Mark, thank you very much for breaking the ice here with our final hour program. And Richard, thanks for hanging in there with us throughout the whole program. And Chuck, what an amazing, presentation again. I just love those,
Yeah,
Thank you.
those are the best.
I am a subscriber to a company called Statista, I think is what it's called, and it's statistics on all kinds of things. Okay, and this program that you did, I was just going, this is perfect. This visualization of all those mountains and everything. I was just, I was thinking of that. So, but I loved it. It's great.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Great stuff. Well, anything else that anybody else wanted to add before we go? It looks like, okay.
Everybody have a good one.
Thanks,
Yes.
Scott, for everything
Thank you
do.
very much.
Thanks. And Martin, I will try to unzip your file on my Windows machine tomorrow. I'm sorry I couldn't do it tonight. And we'll try to show that on the program tomorrow. We will be back on as we are every day at 4 o'clock Central. And until then, keep looking up. We'll see you.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.